What's up? What's up? What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and ladies? Another Thursday live, another Thursday panel. I know a lot of you guys like the panel, so that's why I keep bringing it back. Y'all know we got a special guest tonight, Joel, who's a I believe is a Democrat. I don't know if he's a Democrat. I just know he don't agree with everything I say. We have a few exchanges on social media. Very respectful person, and I expect us to respect him in this joining this. I had to say you got to be brave to come on the show. You know what I'm saying? So we got a special guest on there. So I want to do that because I want the panel to be diverse as well. Because it's no need for us to just everybody agree with the same stuff. Not saying there's anything wrong with that because I feel like most reasonable people agree with me, but there's people with dissenting and different opinions, which we welcome with open arms as long as people are respectful. There's some people who are left that I would never bring on my show because they're absolutely out of their mind. But for Joe, I think he's cool. And y'all know we got, ABL, my boy Craig coming back. So without me running my mouth too much, y'all welcome to the show. And I'll say this at the very beginning, because if you're interested in shopping on the Austin Tatum store, you need to get on there now and get your merch before it sell out. My new shirt that's on the online, I think I got it. Yeah, lift it up like this. Y'all can see it better. Let's get into this B Tatum edition. People have been begging me to make that shirt for a long time, so I made it. Discount code Tatum IG, 20% off the entire store. That also includes my signed copy of my book. So if you're interested, you better get it now while the discount is still hot. So without further ado, let's get people on here. Shout out to my boy ABL in the house. ABL is always in the house, man. That's my boy. That's my ride or die, ABL, man. All right, we got my boy Craig in the house.
What's up? What's up? What up?
We got my new brother, Joe Jackson, in the house. What's up, Joe?
What's going on, y'all?
All right, so I can hear everybody. Everybody can hear me. We're going to get right into this thing. I ain't going to waste no time tonight. So the title of this stream is that Joe Biden's ratings should have revealed that most people are waking up to what's going on in this administration. I believe that Joe Biden is taking a poo in his diaper, and he's not doing very well as the leader of the free world. Obviously, I think that he's in there by some fantasy world imagination, but we have seen some all-time lows of approval rating and all this, according to CNN. So I'm gonna talk to the panel about it. What do you guys think about how Joe Biden has done as the president of the United States of America? Have he done a good job? Has he done a poor job? And what would be some of the things that you would point to validate your point? So ABL, we'll start with you.
Well, he's not done a very good job. And I'm saying that just from observing what anybody can see. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, or whatever, independent, anybody can see what's going on. He's not been in office for a full year yet. And what do we have? The whole Afghanistan fallout, that was a complete embarrassment on an international level. People died for no reason. People fell from the plane. I've never seen that before in my life. Somebody trying to grab onto the landing gear to escape because the whole thing was so hasty and ridiculously done. Trump wanted to get out, but there was an actual plan there. It said, no, we're not going to do that plan. We're going to do our own plan. They tried to do that. It didn't work out. A whole big disaster. And then the whole thing with the pipeline, remember the Keystone XL? He stopped that pipeline. Then he allowed Russia to get a pipeline in Germany. So it was like, okay, they can have one where we can't. And we see the price of gas going up. So it was like, what are we doing? Can we get some more domestic oil production? Or are we going to still rely upon the foreign people? What's happening with that? Inflation going up. Try going to the grocery store right now and getting some chicken, some eggs, some fish, some milk, whatever you want. Everything's going up. Restaurant, everything's going up. They're giving you smaller portions for a higher price. So it's worse than what it looks. If you go to the store and you get, let's say a carton of eggs, you might get normally 12 for, let's say $5. I don't know what it costs. I don't eat eggs. 12 for $5. Now you're getting 8 for $6. You see, it's only $1 more, but you got less. See, they're doing that stuff all across the board. The school board thing, they're using the DOJ and the FBI weaponized against parents, against regular people, saying, hey, I don't want you to teach my 12-year-old about improper sexual positions, okay? That's not your job, all right? This is a little girl right here with a SpongeBob backpack on. Don't tell her about sex positions. That's not your job, right? All these things are going on within the first year. And when he's getting out there on stage and talking, there's no confidence in it because he could barely string 2 words together without stumbling and bumbling and fumbling and carrying on. Not a very good job. Only in the first year. I know I almost forgot about the border crisis. 15,000 Haitians under a bridge. It's been a whole big mess. Not a very good look for the first few months of the presidency.
I have to say I agree. In non-biased terms, I think that's a pretty quick articulation. Craig, I'm gonna go to you, and then Joel, I'll let you explain your perception of this. Craig, go ahead.
Hey, everybody. ABL pretty much covered everything. I want to add a few more things. I want to talk about the contradictions of Joe Biden and his teammates at the Democratic Party when it comes to the saline. The forced salines on people, creating a second-class citizen, punishing people, losing their jobs, people being pretty much put to the bottom of the barrel when it comes to organ donations, things like that. I want to make sure I highlight on that as well. And another thing, not just the contradictions, but things like trying to pass legislation where if you make it any type of transaction of $600, giving the FBI, the IRS more access to our bank accounts and, information, which is a privacy issue. So those are kind of my add-ons. I'm sure more will come to me as we go, but I want to make sure I just bring that to light of different things that I disagree and I do not like as far as this administration and Biden.
All right, Joe, what you got?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I'm not a Democrat or Republican, and I think that he's done a pretty terrible job as president. Really, I mean, I'm trying to find something that I can find some sort of middle ground on where I can see that he's done that we can all say, okay, maybe I'll give him that, but I'm struggling here. So it's I think maybe in terms of his delivery, in terms of not being so back and forth with the Republican Party or whatever, I'll say he's done that well. That's the only thing I could say is like I don't see a lot of trying to keep the riffraff going between Republicans and Democrats. But other than that, I mean, in terms of policy, it's been pretty terrible.
Yeah, I have to say I agree with that assessment as well. Now, I didn't vote for him. Who on the panel voted for Joe Biden?
I didn't.
Good. Nobody voted for him. So, but I think he's doing a terrible job, as far as, especially for the black community. And I'm not just focused on the black community because, I'm an American at the end of the day. We all Americans first. And then, depending on where you live, maybe you can associate with a certain community. But when you talk about the campaign promises and Kamala Harris being the first black vice president and all of this other stuff, I mean, they have dropped the ball. There is no legislation. There's no, that I know of. There is no projection. There's no promises. They ain't even trying to say anything about helping black people specifically. And one thing with this HBCU thing, I mean, that was one of the biggest things that people misconstrued or misunderstood about President Trump is that he signed executive orders in order to make sure the HBCUs were paid far in advance, not just annually, but they were paid far in advance for them to have at least the economic structure to continue to move forward. Joe Biden cut his HBCU payments, and they have lost money now. I believe that, you talk about racism in this country, people talk about the racialization of voting and that voter ID is racist because it disproportionately affects black people. However, I disagree that it's racist, but I do agree that maybe it disproportionately affects some people. But you're talking about the mandates. 70-something+% of African Americans are not being taken the Fauci ouchie. And with that being said, it's discriminatory to mandate or not allow people in society to have access, and that disproportionately affects black people. And I think that this is a trend in this administration and also for Democrats as a whole, that they have consistently done things intentionally and unintentionally that destroys the black community. So what do you guys think about not only this administration and how it affects minority black communities, and also the history of the Democrats. Have there been a time where Democrats have done positive things for the black community? Go ahead, ABL. And y'all feel free to jump in if you feel passionate about it. Just jump in at any time.
Now, as far as Democrats doing anything positive, I can't really point to a time where they did do anything positive. I guess the only thing that somebody could look at that could be positive is some of these social programs. But again, that's not a positive thing. Somebody might think that it is. Hey, you can get this benefit from the government if you're not doing very well, if you're having a hard time being able to find somewhere to live and, find something to eat, get on these government programs. But it's a double-edged sword. It's pros and cons to the government programs. And I think at this point, many years later, after the whole Great Society thing passed by LBJ, you got to say that the programs did more harm than good. Look at a single-parent household rate. Back in 1960 in the black community, we had an 80% two-parent household rate among blacks. 80% two parents in the house before a baby came into the picture. 80% married parents having kids. Now it's almost a reverse. 75% single-parent households, unmarried parents having kids, and multiple kids by multiple people. So it's like, okay, what changed between then and now? Is there more racism? Is there more violence against blacks from whites? No. What's happening is that you have the state that has come in to be the de facto father. When back in the day, you had to have a dad in the house. You had to have a two-parent structure in order to survive. But now that's not really required. Okay, you don't have any money, go down to the welfare office and get some money. You can't get a house or anything like that. I saw something crazy today on Facebook. It was like a TikTok style video where it was a woman with her child, I presume single mom, no man in sight. She was in front of an empty lot. And then she was continuing to do like this little dance. And then it was a house being built behind them. And she was saying, hey, you can get a house too on a Section 8 voucher. You're building a house on a Section 8 voucher. So check it out. Why do you need a man? Why do you need a family structure? But the bad side is that little girl's going to grow up totally lost. Yes, she has a house. Yes, she has food. She might be about 700 pounds and not knowing what man to call her actual husband. And these kids that she's going to have are going to go out there and be monsters and terrorizing the black community. Not all the time, but too often. This is a cycle. So I don't see anything good that the Democratic Party has done. Some may think they have done good things, but once you look at it, they are not good things.
So do you? I'm gonna jump in. Oh no, Joe, you had something to say?
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as saying they haven't done anything good because I think when it comes to, like, for example, Clinton, when he came in, he was like, hey, you're going to have welfare. But, I think he put him on like a 2-year program to where you would have to actually be enrolled in school or in a career program in order to keep your benefits. And so he was trying to get, people off of welfare. I would say also when the financial crisis happened, the Dodd-Frank protections that helped a lot of, I mean, because I'm in the mortgage space and I understand how things go, and people get taken advantage of when it comes to their homes, and having some of those laws there that kind of prevent some of those homeowners from being taken advantage of by sharks and people who are greedy are absolutely necessary. Another thing I'll say is, and I know you guys I might catch a lot of heat for this, and again, I want to be a little bit of a contrarian on the panel. Is Obamacare specifically with the pre-existing conditions? I remember having I remember seeing what was the documentary by the guy, I forget who did the healthcare thing with the white Michael Moore, whatever his name is.
Michael Moore.
Yeah. And during that time, I ended up having I had a sinus infection, and then it got worse. And I remember trying to get some healthcare to take care of that. And because I was just coming out of college, I went to UCLA. I was just coming out of college. And I remember I applied to like Blue Shield and all the Blue Crosses and all the other ones. And they're like, hey, we can't give you any health care because you got a pre-existing condition, which is a sinus infection. So when it comes to things like that, I can't say that they've done any good. They've done some harm too, but I can't say that they haven't done any good, because I think some of those things absolutely do help people.
Okay. And I'll just add this. I think that here's the what we call unintended consequences, and I think that Thomas Sowell wrote very well about how nobody cares about your intent. It's the results, right? So if you go to build a building and you build a building and it collapses and kill everybody, it doesn't matter that you had the intentions for it to do well. It actually, the result, the final result was negative. And I think Obamacare, although some people may have seen a benefit, but overall unconstitutional to mandate a penalty for people not choosing a particular healthcare program. And then there was a lot of people, and not everybody, but there was a lot of people that saw their healthcare premiums rise under Barack Obama.
Look, the healthcare premiums are crazy, like especially for self-employed people. Like the premiums I pay, me and my wife, oh my God, like, and then on top of that, the deductible is super high. You don't get that the care that you get is not all of that. You have hospitals that are dropping out of some of these networks. It's crazy. You can't always get to the doctor. So it was like, again, it goes back to the whole thing I was just saying. It may look like it's a good thing on its face, and for some people, it may help. If you have a Section 8 voucher or welfare, that might help you. But look at its pros and cons. Look at how much harm it's done compared to the good that it's done. I know plenty of people that say, you know what, I don't even want the health care. I'll take the penalty, because the penalty, and when it was still a thing, I can't afford the health care, so I'll take the penalty instead. So they are saying that it's for people that are kind of not really able to afford the health care, but they can't even afford to get it. So it's a mess. It's a whole big mess.
Here's the thing, right? I don't. And again, this is why I became a more of an independent, because a lot of it is like you blame the other side for when they fail, and it goes both ways. But what I'll say is this: is that when it comes to healthcare, we were, especially in the state of, in certain, mostly any state, if you go to the ER, the state has got to pick that up. And so people are going to go to the ER, and they're going to be, whether they're illegal aliens or anybody else, they're going to go to the ER. And if they don't pay that bill, the state has got to pick that up. And so it's going to come back to you anyways. But I think the whole idea of healthcare has to be looked at holistically. It can't be looked at. Obamacare was addressing some concerns, and it also ruined a lot of things in healthcare. But I think you got to look at it holistically. Why are we not focused on prevention? Why are we not putting more research into vitamins and things that are going to keep people healthier from some of the leading causes of diseases? Like, why are we not, quote unquote, mandating exercise? Things that are going to help people, like heart disease. Heart disease is the number one killer. It's not cancer. It's not COVID. It's not any of these things. It's heart disease, and heart disease is preventable for the most part when it comes to eating right and exercising. So why don't we giving people like, hey, if you got a gym membership and you're using your gym membership, and we can somehow use technology to, track that, why can't we lower your insurance premium for that? So I think that's the way healthcare should be approached, as opposed to all this, you got to mandate, this coverage or that stuff. That's how I view it.
Yeah, I mean, I would add that I agree with that. I do think that, I don't think that Obama, and this is my personal belief, I don't think that Obama or any of these Democrats and even Republicans haven't done a great job at it, but specifically these Democrats, I don't think they have any objective other than government control and trying to tell you or sell you something that sounds good that has a lasting effect that's going to destroy a certain industry. I don't think they understand these things very well, but I do think that our government, if they want to incentivize, I think they need to get out of our lives. But if they want to incentivize, they should. Like for instance, when I was a police officer, if they didn't change our health care, but you got special pay if you went to the gym and you had like all of these different qualifications, like your degree, if you work out, that means you're less risk of health. They'll give you an incentive. But I do agree to the point of saying, why does the insurance? It's like when you drop like a car insurance. If you haven't gotten in a wreck in 5 years, they lower your car insurance.
They lower your premium. Yeah.
Same thing should be in healthcare. Like why I have never. I mean, I don't want to speak too soon, but I have never needed healthcare my whole life. And even year to year, it's just preventative health stuff or the preventative health checkups. It's nothing major. I don't take risks to put myself in a position where the medical system is going to need to shell out, or at least my insurance is going to need to shell out a lot of money. So I also feel like if people were doing what's right, meaning that if you are working out at the gym, if you have a low risk job or whatever the case may be, maybe they can factor it in if they are going to try to implement some of these things. Who else wanted to jump? Somebody want to jump in? Craig,
just to add to his insight on how we could go about it with just incentivizing exercise, because I own a gym, Joe. What about putting restrictions and regulations on these fast food restaurants? Now they have it where people, if they got an EBT card, they can actually go to McDonald's and buy fast food. And guess who predominantly uses those types of fast food restaurants? Black and brown people. Right. So it's like, if we're going to talk about incentivizing fitness from a holistic standpoint, we also still have to tackle and look deeper into these things that are affecting people as well. People that they may not have the meal, or they feel they got to go eat at a McDonald's and whatnot. So, what's your thoughts on that?
I agree.
Some more restrictions on that.
I agree. Like salt, sugar, and fat, right? Those are the biggest culprits. And honestly, a lot of the food companies, if you look at the labels, it's crap. I mean, the stuff that they put, everything comes with salt and sugar. Everything you eat. Like if you go to the food, you buy some soup, you buy some ketchup, you buy some cereal, you buy anything you buy at the grocery store. You want to talk about inflation? Let's talk about inflating the ingredients that really don't have nutritious ingredients. They have all these processed things in them that are causing people to not get the nutrition they need to even fight diseases. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of it is putting regulations on the food companies and the fast food companies, and also de-incentivizing people to go to fast food and incentivizing people to go to Whole Foods.
Right. And I think it's a great idea, because, when I say, I don't think the federal government should be involved at all, but if they attempt to be involved, they do need to be balanced, because you could say, I won't make it punitive against fast food restaurants, but we will incentivize other fast food restaurants that are actually, producing whole food. Like, for instance, there's a big difference between McDonald's and In-N-Out Burger. That's a completely different thing. And the price is relative. In-N-Out Burger is very cheap. You can get a burger, you just take the cheese and stuff out. You just get it protein style, just the meat there, and you're gonna get a better quality meal with more nutritional value than you would at a McDonald's. And I feel like that they don't care about your health care. It's to incentivize big pharma, because what they do is they disguise it as free, and that's why our debt is trillions of dollars, because they say, oh, it's free, and so the government will pay for it with your tax money, or they'll borrow the money to then give big pharma hundreds of billions of dollars worth of revenue, just like the vaccine. This is my opinion. I'm not here YouTube saying that the vaccine works or not. I believe that it does have some properties in it, benefit to it, and I do believe that it can really hurt you depending on who you are. That's a fact. Now, the reason they're pushing it so much is not because they care about your health, in my opinion. They don't care if you live or die, because like you said, Joe, heart disease is the #1 killer, and I think behind heart disease is malpractice from the hospitals and medical staff. And so they don't care. What they want is to incentivize you through fear to go out, and it's free. In many of these cases, I think the shot is free, but it's not free. Pfizer is charging the government and charging states or whatever. I don't know which way they do it, but they're making hundreds of billions of dollars, and you think, oh, it's just free. No, your tax dollars are paying.
No, you're paying for it.
You're paying for it. Whether you like it or not, you're going to pay for it.
It's true. You're paying for it. And again, if you think about it too, it goes back to what I was originally saying. When they did a study on the people who are actually dying from COVID, they found that 75% of the people who are obese, and they are also lacking vitamin D. Those are some of the biggest things. Like, and so if you're healthy at your age, you have the best chance of survival. I mean, and that's what anything. I mean, I think that's what anything, and everything else is in God's hands. But why are we not incentivizing exercise and mandating gym during COVID?
Right. They just shut the gym down. They want you not to be able to go to gym. You can't
Right.
participate in activities. Go ahead, ABL.
The thing about it is people are lazy at a certain point. You got to understand that, and also uneducated. So if you're going through K through 12, where is the home economics class? These women nowadays, no offense to all the ladies out there, but you know what I'm saying is true. You guys that this is not applied to, don't nobody get triggered. But a lot of women nowadays cannot boil water. They cannot boil water. Men too can't boil water. They don't know how to prepare food for themselves. They rely upon these fast food companies. They rely upon DoorDash and Uber Eats and things of that nature in the drive-through. Every time I go past a Sonic, a Chick-fil-A, a McDonald's, a KFC, all the drive-through lines are jam-packed. Go to the grocery store, ain't nobody really in there. You could pretty much go to the produce aisle, to the meat section, and everything's all good. You can go in and out with no issue. Go to Chick-fil-A, be there a half hour trying to get your number one. That's what's going on. People got the money, so it's not even the money thing. They say, "Oh well, food is too expensive at the store. It's too much." No, it's not. If the store food is expensive, then so is the fast food. A lot of it come from the same farms. You're paying the same thing at the end of the day. It's just people are lazy. They don't want to go cook. They don't want to prepare the food at home. So I think we need to have more home make in K through 12, more education about what good food is and how to prepare it and how to eat, rather than this whole old school thing of the pyramid, the food. Remember the food pyramid?
Yeah.
That was totally debunked. It was not true. And then eating 3 meals a day. Why eating 3 meals a day when you don't even do any kind of physical activity? You sit at a computer for 8 hours a day and you eating 3 meals, big meals. You're eating IHOP for breakfast, Chick-fil-A for lunch, and you go home and eat a big crazy dinner and go right to bed. And you wonder why you're 500 pounds. You got to have the proper education from an early age. And I think this is part of a whole system. They don't want to educate you. So then once you get to be a teenager, an adult, oh, well, I need metformin. Oh, well, I need to go get this pill, get that pill. Oh, I need to take this vaccine because I'm 800 pounds and I'm in a high risk group to get this virus. So I think it all boils down to education.
And this segued me into another topic here. You know, when you talk about education, instead of teaching transgenderism and teaching critical race theory, they should probably invest in teaching kids life skills and teaching them how to have leadership skills and how to be able to communicate with one another and how, to build your credit. And what does that mean? What does investment mean? Like, I believe that, in my opinion, I wish that they would teach kids that instead of pushing the social justice stuff down their throat. I mean, you learn mathematics, fine. I mean, I didn't use 90% of the stuff that I learned. I multiply, divide, subtract, then you use percentages. Some of those things, you don't use all the other things if you're not going into the mathematical world. I wish that they would stop wasting their time in some of that and start teaching you how to be an effective adult, as you go through the ranks. So, I agree 1,000%, but I think it's a vested interest. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theory. They have a vested interest in you being dumb so they can then sell you whatever is popping right now. It's easy to go get fast food. And it's not even real meat. I mean, you get absolutely no nutritional value from a McDonald's burger. A pickle is probably, after they didn't ran it through all the stuff they run through, the pickle had no nutritional value. Probably don't have any of the nutritional value that a regular pickle would normally have. It's watered down. It's washed down. It's synthetic. All of these things are not in it to produce good, valuable human beings. And This is what separates wealth from poverty. People who have wealth and people who are in poverty. You have more education. You can afford different things. You can afford a life coach, a nutritionist, and you can live a longevity. But these poor people, I mean, my God, they listen to, they'll get any vaccine they give your kids. They know nothing about, like, I'm gonna say this one thing that I learned with my second son, with my wife, is that I didn't understand the value of skin to skin and cord blood. Mm-hmm. And so when you have a child in their birth, they supposed to let the umbilical cord stay on until it finishes pulsating, because a lot of the valuable nutrients that are coming from the placenta go through the umbilical cord. And what they do is they pull them out, they cut it. That's why people keep cord blood and stuff, because it has a lot of properties in it that can save your life one day. But they cut it off. And when I was, on food stamps and, making $1,000 a month, which my son's mom was, because she was on scholarship player, you know, I didn't know nothing about that. But then when, later in life, I had a little more money. We got a doula. We went through the whole process. We learned a lot from that. And they have a vested interest in separating, people who have and the have nots.
Just to add to what you're saying, Brandon, I mean, we can say we can create better institutes, better educational processes to help educate people. But for me, what I always tackle on, I always say is always boils back down to either the individual or maybe just even how they're raised culturally. What's their principles and values? What are the things that their mother and father or their grandmama or the people around them, what did they value? What did they emphasize? What was important? And that is the difference between people that are poor and people that are wealthy. If we really study and dive into people that are rich and wealthy, we can look at their value system. We can look at the principles of the things that they feel are important and how they rear their children or how they raise their children. Do they raise them with godly values, going to church? Whatever that looks like for the individual, we can compare it simply from poor to rich. We can see what they value, what they don't value, and it'll all lead up to what I always tell people. Success has a universal principle that does not care what color somebody is, what religion, how big you are, how skinny you are, how tall is. Are you practicing those things? And unfortunately, some people are brought up in situations where they have families that don't value or have those principles set, but it doesn't mean it's too late for them. Because as an individual, God gave us the ability to make a decision. And you can, at any point in your life, make a decision to change course and put your life on a new path or create a family that maybe you didn't grow up from. So all these things are great. We can come up with the education, the different institutes, and these different things. But until culturally, people, just talking about America, culturally, we start diving in and really going back into what are we valuing? What's the principles? How do we live our lives? We're going to continue to see a downward spiral in our society. So I just wanted to add that. I don't know if you guys want to.
I want to add a few things. Go ahead.
I was going to say I was going to change it right after that, but go ahead, Joel, and then we're going to talk about America being a racist country.
Okay. I think when you talk about it, because you're right on with that, that, having family values. I think when it comes down to it, the education system, I think we got to get more therapists and counselors in schools. I think every student should have at least a week of therapy, to where, because sometimes things break, right? Life happens. Things happen. People don't grow up with the right parents. Something happened to them, and a child can be left making decisions on their own, and that's not good. So I think, having therapists and all through K through 12, like all through it, to where people can have somebody to talk to, and again, you got it's almost like you got to go to PE, you got to go to therapy, and you go there and you talk about your issues, and a person helps you to really process your emotions and your thoughts and things that are going on. And so you're not really making all these quote unquote life impacting decisions by yourself, turning to drugs, turning to sex, turning to alcohol, turning to all these things that are going to lead you down a darker path before you realize, before it's too late, or before you realize, oh shoot, I caused a lot of damage in society, and now I got to change my life around while you sitting behind bars. The other thing I wanted to say is we should teach police interaction in the Black community in school. We should teach how to manage our emotions. How do we manage our emotions when we're dealing with the police officer? How do we sit here and say, okay, if I'm with a police officer and let's say he's being aggressive. Let's say he's being aggressive, and realizing, okay, how do I manage my emotions so I don't get shot? How do I manage my emotion? And again, that goes back to that can go back to the therapy example too. How do I manage my emotions and realize, hey, you know what? If I actually want some real justice, it ain't gonna happen on this street. It's gonna happen in the courtroom. So how do I teaching police interaction from K through 12 because I think that's a big problem. Is that 98% of these shootings that happen with the police is caused by the person aggravating the situation, and the police just responding. And so it's like, how do we teach that? Those are the things I have to add to it.
So Joel is a secret conservative, and
Yeah, Joe, I'm wondering. I said, man, I thought we was gonna have some opposing person.
I know.
Sound
Maybe
like
I
he's
got-
agreeing with everything.
He probably got something in the.
I feel it coming though.
Let me just
Really
come on
coming.
out and ask him, what is it that you
It'd be one
disagree
topic
with?
where he goes a little. I feel
Well,
it coming.
I feel it coming, though.
I think this is where the turn is. And
It's
y'all make sure y'all
coming.
hit the like button. Hit the like button if you're watching. We got 2,000 people watching and hit 2,000 likes. So here's the thing. Like, I agree with you 100%. I mean, that's, as a former police officer, how do we not have police consistently in the school system and having the right people teach about policing? Because nowadays, if they have policing, you're teaching about policing in the school now, I mean, you can probably get more people killed. But if you have the proper individuals who come into the classroom, who are in law enforcement, who patrol that community, come in and interact with the kids and teach them, this is what we look for when we doing these things. When we pull you over, this is what we see. This is how we act. This is the things that'll keep both of us safe. However, there's people who have a vested interest in not educating you on those principles, because if they educate you on the principles, then there will be no excuses for why brothers are, disproportionately represented in use of force and all these other things. But I want to jump to America being racist. Does anybody on the panel, Joe, and I don't know if you believe it, because we go back and forth about a few things, and I don't know exactly which ones, but does anybody on the panel believe that America is systemically racist?
I don't.
Not systemically, no.
Do anybody on the panel believe that America has a prevalence of racism, meaning that it's a epidemic of racism in this country?
No.
Do anybody on the panel believe that policing is systemically racist?
No.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I
good.
think
I found it. There it goes.
Wow.
Now, so I'll start with you, Joe. Like, because I think most people on the panel disagree with that, and maybe most people watching disagree with that. But in what ways do you think that policing is systemically racist? And just explain who you believe is racist against, just real quick.
Okay, so I think it's just it's systemically racist when you have and again, this can be a double-edged sword. So I'll give a little, I'll take a little. When black, let's just speak on black people. Black people commit a lot of violent crimes. They commit drug-related crimes, things like that, right? And so if somebody's coming from the suburbs, right, they don't look like you. They don't know anything about you. See, we as black people, we know when we can look at a black person, we're like, oh shoot, this dude ain't he looks sketchy, And I think sometimes when it comes to like a white person or Latino or somebody else who's outside the community looking at us, they're like, y'all all look sketchy. And so I can tell you stories of how I was profiled growing up, things that happened to me while I was at UCLA. And as a student, threatened by an officer threatened to be killed by an officer. And I'll tell you that story. That story was crazy. But at the end of the day, I think, there's a lot of, and again, it could be provoked. I'm not saying that it's not provoked in a sense that, okay, if we're looking at stats, if I'm a data analyst and I'm looking at stats and I'm like, okay, all the people of this group are doing this. Therefore, I'm going to reasonably assume that this person could be a part of this particular trend. I get that, right? And again, that's where the gray area comes. Is it racism or is it data? It's in the sense that it can be perceived as racism.
Okay, so now I didn't hear anything that overwhelmingly suggests that policing is systemically racist against black people. I hear from you the idea that it could be prejudicial. I don't know if that's a word. It could be prejudice against minority communities, because you believe that if you just look at the numbers, more white people are police, and some of these white people are going into the inner city, and then they may have some inherent bias. But however, I think that's more of an opinion than an articulable fact, because it's impossible to really know that unless you're
How
in
do
the
you prove
mind
it?
well, so this is what I'd say. Just in my opinion, based on me being a police officer, it's people they're putting a lot of things together that don't match. If you are talking about exposure to police in a black neighborhood, everybody's black. I mean, most people are black. So how is it that a person is getting discriminated against another black person? People saying that police are heavy-handed in the inner city versus not. I mean, it's very difficult to draw that conclusion, because when you're on patrol, you are assigned to a particular community. You don't have the white community up north, and then you also have a black community, and you just choose to be in a black community. Most of the precincts are divided up into parts of the city. So if you happen to work in a particular precinct, which is the south side of Chicago, all of your interactions, good and bad, are with primarily minority black people. And you see the victims. You see grandma who've been robbed. You see good black people. So I don't think it's fair to say that these people are coming from outer space and then they're landing in a black community and they're completely shocked when they see black people, because police get experience and exposure to all types of black people, business, criminals, non-criminals, victims, children. I mean, you get exposed to all of that. And so I would push back on the notion that just because there's a disproportionate amount of force used doesn't necessarily mean it has anything to do with particularly racism. Craig, you have something to add to that?
I mean, just from listening to his story, it seems that he just personally had some bad experiences with the police in the area where he was. But I wouldn't say, as a blanket statement, police as a whole is systemically just gearing towards black and brown people. I don't see that. And this is coming. You're giving it, Brandon. You're giving it a perspective from being a police officer. I can only give a perspective from being an ex-con, an ex-criminal. For me to say, well, they're targeting me just because I'm black, knowing that I'm in where I grew up, they called it red zoning, which meant high drug, high crime area. And even if you didn't matter what color you were, you pulled into that area or left the area, you could get pulled over because it's such high drug, high crime, it's violence. So a lot of times I would get pulled over, and I don't feel that it was just because I was black. I think it was because I was known for committing crimes that they couldn't bust me on. So every chance they could, they can pull me over. So, using my own experience from being an ex-criminal, having interactions with police, I'm telling you, Joel, genuinely, man, from my own experience, I had a lot of run-ins with the police officer. I genuinely don't think that the whole system as a blanket it's racist and it's geared towards just undermining black people. I just don't. It's hard to, like Brandon said, you're taking bits and pieces and they're jumbling them all together. You know these areas that we're talking about, some of these inner cities across America, right? They're high violent, man. Like your chances of being a victim from a violent crime is high, right? So whoever's going to patrol that, black or brown, and we're starting to see a lot of these cities, they have black police officers and black police chiefs. So it's like we can't say it's racist and it's systemic towards one group of people, dude. It's just depending on the area, it could have a different outcome, man.
Yeah, let me just add this in. You look at Philadelphia PD, and then I'm gonna let ABL go, and then I'll jump back to you, Joe. But you look at Philly PD, almost half of the police department is black. You look at Atlanta, almost half of the police department is black. Back in 2012 or 13, when I went to the National Black Police Association conference, I mean, there are chiefs, assistant chiefs, sergeants, lieutenants in many of these cities that are primarily black, there are black people. And so, I think that it may be a misunderstanding because of anecdotal experiences. And I'm gonna let ABL go. And Joe, if you can keep it to like a minute or two, I want to hear your perspective of what happened to you at UCLA. But if it's going to be like a 10-minute thing, then we'll do it another time.
It'll be quick.
It'll be quick. But I'll let ABL go, and then I'll jump back to you, Joe. ABL, what were you going to say?
Yeah, now the whole thing, I want to add my perspective. I think there may be some racial profiling, but I think at a certain point you see patterns develop, And if you don't act in those patterns, you're going to have a higher incidence of crime.
Mhm.
You know, like where I'm from in Virginia and where I was living, everybody's black. Everybody's black. In certain areas, it's like mostly white. You got rich, you got poor, and you have certain kinds of traffic that always go through these areas. So let's say, for example, in Waverly, Virginia, way out there, like you about to go to Richmond, almost kind of like in the middle of nowhere. If you're in Waverly, Virginia, and a sedan with 4 males, and they got New York plates on it, you getting pulled over immediately.
Off tops.
Off top, you running drugs instantly, and I won't say the percentage, but more often than not, if they do that, they're gonna find something. They pulling you over. Oh, here goes some drugs. Oh, here go a gun. Oh, you don't got your license. Because they already know they see the same thing over and over again. So it's not even about necessarily against a black or brown. Let's say if you are a white person and you come to my neighborhood, what are you doing here, sir? Everybody's black. You don't even see light-skinned folks around here. Everybody look just like me. Everybody dark-skinned, black. What are you doing here, white boy? That's what they're going to say.
Yeah.
So the police are going to run right up on you. Are you on heroin, sir? Are you on cocaine? You on crack? You a dope fiend? Why are you out here? It's not even a black or a white thing necessarily. It's about we see certain patterns. We know what's going on. You're not necessarily in the right place. We're trying to see what's happening. And it's not meant to be personal. It's meant just to keep the crime down. Because if they don't do that, you're going to have higher crime. So if it's me, I would say, all right, police, you know what's going on. You know what the patterns are. I need you to act on those patterns and do some preventative measures to prevent crime so we don't have a very high crime rate. So we don't have little kids and grandmas and whatnot getting shot and killed because you get gangbangers shooting through the windows and the walls and hitting them when they at the kitchen cooking chicken and stuff like that. So I look at it just from a practical point of view. I don't look at it from a personal point of view. And I'm not saying the police are perfect, but I think things like that do happen, but it's for a good reason.
Let me add this before I give you the mic, Joe. I just want to give people a perspective of what I used to do as a police officer and kind of like what we used to always do. There are you can profile situations and vehicles. You don't profile people. So if I saw a suspicious vehicle, and when you go to the police academy, they teach you that you can pull anybody over at any time. And when I say that, it's not for false pretenses. Is that if you follow a person for 5 minutes, they are going to commit a traffic violation because most people don't understand the traffic laws. So they don't understand what a wide turn is. They don't understand crossing lanes without a signal. They may not be paying attention to it. If you follow a person long enough, they're going to commit a violation. And we are trained to look at those anomalies. You see a car with 6 black dudes in it, and the car is dragging on the ground. And, you know, you got people with tats on their face and stuff like that. You may be considering, well, I'm just going to pull the car over if they commit a traffic violation, especially if they don't belong in a particular area. It's not like you see a black man driving by and you're like, oh, I'm going to pull him over because he's black. It's like there's a lot of other things that go into account when you are evaluating whether or not I want to follow this person, pull this person over. Why? Because you want to get drugs, you want to get criminals off the street. You're not wasting your time pulling over a perfectly normal black person who's not doing anything just because of the color of their skin. And if you do that, you're not going to ever get anywhere because there's a lot of black people that are not committing crimes. And there's Hispanics that are running drugs as you pulling over a black man who's done nothing. So a lot of times we see a particular car that's driving. If it looks suspicious, if it's in a suspicious area, we'll drive behind them and pull them over for a legitimate traffic stop. So that's kind of a little bit of how you do things. And it doesn't matter if you're white or black or whatever. It depends on the circumstances based on criminal trends. And we win like that. You don't win by racially profiling because, you know, it just doesn't work. Not saying that people don't do it. I'm just saying, and generally speaking, it doesn't work. Joe, I want to hear your story.
Okay, yeah, and again, guys, I watch a ton of police. I suggest you guys subscribe to police activity in those channels. I watch hours and hours and hours upon like every video I'm watching for years, and I do it for my own information. I do it so I can make more accurate judgments and juxtapose those from my own experiences or the experiences of my peers or whatever. And so, hold
on, let me interject real quick. Have you ever done a ride along?
No, I never. That'd
be a great one to try. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, okay, I'll try it. Yeah. So when I was at UCLA, I was at UCLA and I was a student there. I was a great student. You know, I had high grades in high school. Anyways, long story short, there's this place in UCLA in Westwood. It's called DD Reese. Everybody goes there. They buy cookies there, cookies and ice cream. Everybody goes there. So I was driving my car, and we were going to my friend Jerron. We were going
What
to
kind of car were you driving?
a Honda Civic.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a Honda Civic. This was back in 2000, probably 6 or 7. And I remember the officer's name. His name was Officer Eubank, who pulled me over. And I was driving, and we were going in the opposite direction to the traffic stop from the driver. Now I'm completely legit. You know, nothing is going on with my car. The only thing I had was my windows rolled down, and we're driving back from getting cookies. So we're driving through. And UCLA is right by Beverly Hills and Bel Air. So it's right in smack in the middle of Beverly Hills and Bel Air. And so we're driving down what's called Veteran Road from getting cookies, and we're about to bring the cookies back to the dorms to give it to our friends and eat them. And an officer was at the traffic light opposite to us, and he saw my face. He turned over, saw my face, and I just kept looking straight, but I saw him out of the corner of my eye. And then like 50 feet, maybe 50 to 100 feet after he passed us, he busted U-turn me, sped up, right? And so I'm like, okay, here we go. I already know what's about to happen. So I pulled over, and at the time, being in possession of marijuana was illegal. And so I pulled over on this street right on Veteran next to these white guys who were hazed out in the car smoking weed. And you could tell, you could smell it, you could see the smoke in the car, and you could tell they're white because when the cop's light flashed, it was illuminating their car. And so one of the officers walked over to the car of the white guys, and then the other officer walked over to us after he pulled us over. And the officer Eubank said, don't get those guys. Speaking to his partner, let's get these guys. And again, they were actually doing something illegal. At the time, they were in possession of marijuana. They could not be in possession of marijuana. The white guys took off after the police officer did not approach their car after he's like, I'm going to turn around, you know, and interrogate these guys. And he's like, what are you guys doing over here? Why are you over here? You know, and he started threatening my friend, saying, if you say anything to me, I'll shoot you. I'll shoot you right here. I'll shoot you right here. You better not say anything to me. And then the other officer's like, why are you guys here? Let me see why you're here. Let me see your ID. Give me your, you know, and being very aggressive with this. And that was like one of the most scariest incidents I've ever been in my life. And I can't think of any reason why he pulled me over, any reason of why I was guilty or anything other than being a 20-year-old student at UCLA.
Okay.
So that's one interaction. That's not all of them. That's one.
Yeah, but you know, and I'm not discounting your interaction or anything like that, but let me give you just a couple other things that you could think about as well. I mean, think about this: if police officers patrolling the area, they're not, relatively speaking, there's not the first traffic stop they've pulled people over. It's not the first interaction with people that they've had. So, you know, it could be a few different things. You know, driving a Honda Civic, which is the most stolen vehicle in the United States by far. Maybe you matched the description of somebody they were looking for. Those things can possibly happen. You know, it's just hard it could happen, but it's hard to believe that these cops are just,
but why
one black man out of all the black people that are at UCLA, out of all black people that drive through the area, that they just see one and they say, we're going to go get these black guys for no reason. I mean,
why allow someone who's doing something actually illegal that you're catching in the act? Why let them go?
I think a good question would be if you were able to communicate with Officer Eubank and say, okay, what was going on here? Why did y'all let them go versus dealing with us? Did they make you get out? Did they make you get out the car?
No, they didn't make me get out the car.
Did they ask you for your ID?
I gave them everything: my ID, registration, car insurance.
Did they write you a ticket?
They wrote me a ticket for tinted windows in the back.
Okay. So,
yeah.
You know, are you open to the believing that the possibility is that they may not have been racially profiling you?
Not on that incident, no.
You think that was 100% racial profiling?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And really just because, like I said, the other officer threatened to shoot my friend. He threatened him. He said, if you say or do anything, I'm gonna shoot you right now. And my friend was like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here. And he's like, don't talk back to me. I'm gonna kill you. I'll shoot you in the head. Like literally those words. And then, like I said, he let those guys go and didn't even question them why they were in possession of marijuana, which was illegal in 2006 in California. So this one, absolutely not. I can't.
I can't disagree. I can't disagree with your story because I wasn't there, but I hear what you're saying. You know,
but as a Christian, I forgive him. So that's all I can do.
Okay. What about? Let me give you an example of something that happened to me, and I think that I could say it was race related, but you know, I just don't unless I have unequivocal evidence. In 2010, I got pulled over. I was in a Grand Marquis with 22-inch rims on it. I mean, it was a drug dealer car. I mean, I bought it because I was cool with gold teeth in my mouth. Then I got saved, but I still had the car. So I was driving down the street, leaving my pastor's house. I got a collar shirt on, and they had speed bumps in the middle of the road, but they had a divot in the middle or a section in the middle where you can drive around it. So I kind of drove around the speed bump, which caused me to cross double lines. The guy pulls me over. He was the most rude, disrespectful dude I have ever encountered. He pulled me over. He was yelling at me, talking crazy to me. I had to get out the car. He arrested me. He paper referred me. So he arrested me and then he released me right there. He gave me a ticket for not having registration, not having insurance, but he never asked me for my insurance. So my car had expired registration in a foreign state, which in the state of Arizona is a criminal offense. However, I had told him that my dad pays for my car and my dad is trying to register it out of Texas. All of those things. He was completely rude to me, doing all this old crazy stuff. All of the charges got dropped except the driving on the wrong side of the road, which he miscited me for because it was technically crossing the double lines. He cited me for driving on the wrong side of the road. I mean, I don't know. The guy was a jerk. I don't know if it's because I was black. Now I could say, oh, he did that just because I was black, because he was picking on me. I could tell he was after me. But then again, I don't really know. After being a police officer, cops are jerks, and normally the jerky ones are the jerks to everybody. So there could be a possibility that was racially profiling. It could have been. I was in a primarily black community, or it could have been that guy was an a-hole and something about me he didn't like, and it may not have been just my race. So I became a police officer after that, and I was gonna find him. I saved the ticket and everything. I was gonna ask him about it, like, yeah, hey dude, you was a jerk to me, but I never did it. So I say that story to say that I think unless it's unequivocal to me that it's about race, people have to be open-minded to say, I don't really know. I don't know what this officer act like to other people. I don't know if it's just my car or just your friend's behavior, whether it's good or bad, that makes them want to do something. I don't know if the kids in the other car may have been, somebody they knew, or, you really don't know. So some of these instances could very well be racism, but they also could not. They also could not. So I think that when we look at it, we have to say, let's play both sides and say, unless it was unequivocal, unless he called you the N-word, or it's overtly like, oh, I don't like black people. Right. And you got to keep an open mind, because cops are just a-holes, man. Some of them are complete jerks. And
I agree.
The ones on our department that were jerks, brother, God is my witness. They were jerks to everybody. Officer Buckley, I forget the other girl officer. She used to cuss people out all the time, and the police officers hated them. They were so much of a jerk. But anyway,
I feel like you're going to have bad people in anything that you do, regardless of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just to add, that not just with police encounters, you get into some type of altercation or something with someone that's white, you didn't get the job or that promotion. We can't just automatically revert to, oh, it's because I'm black. We have to start looking at things subjectively and say, well, maybe I didn't get the job. Someone was better qualified. And I notice it's something that trends within Americans that are black. A lot of people revert to automatically, I didn't get the job because I'm black, or they had a run-in or had traded words with someone that was white, and they automatically just say, oh, they're racist. But the person could just been an a-hole or vice versa. So it's not just with cops, it's across the board. Not saying that it doesn't happen, racism don't happen, but we can't say every single situation is somebody is racist and it's a racist situation just because I'm black.
Yeah, I sorry, dude. I agree. No, I 100% agree. We should always walk in the middle, always with any issue. And that's my whole point. That's why I used to be a Democrat. Then I became a Republican, and then I stopped being a Republican because I was like, you know what? I see some things wrong with the Republicans too, and I just care more about truth. You're not gonna tie me to a certain narrative or a certain agenda. That's, to me, that's true. When you talk about Candace Owens and thinking for yourself and free thinking, that to me, that's true free thinking, because I'm not gonna automatically side with any side. So when it comes to racism, I look at that on a case-by-case basis. Black people who say everything is racist are just as bad as anybody else who says everything is not racist. So to me, it's like, look at everything for what it is, and if the evidence supports it, maybe it does, because sometimes it's hard to prove racism. You can't really prove, even in the case where Brandon said, hey, if you call them nigga, da-da-da, sometimes you really can't prove what's in people's hearts. You know, it could have been something where he's just trying to aggravate you or being upset. You can't really prove racism, even when it's even sometimes when it's overt. You can make a conjecture and say, yeah, I believe that, but it's hard to prove something that's in somebody's heart. And what I'll say about certain things of like when it comes to basically this idea of walk in the middle, that's just extremely important for us to help move forward as a nation, because I think too many times we don't want to look at the evidence. Like Harvard did a study on, when you talked about jobs, Harvard did a study on applications, and you guys can look it up on your own. Go to type in Google, Harvard study on job applications and racism, and Harvard proved that, hey, certain people who had certain names didn't get the job, even though they had the same qualification, and they did an extensive study on this thing. So I don't know.
I'm gonna comment on that. I'm gonna comment on that though.
Go ahead, ABL.
The name discrimination thing is real, and it's not race. Prime example. If you have 1,000 applications to go through, because I've been here, I've been the guy look at the applications. You got 1,000 to look through. At a certain point, you got to do process of elimination right away to not even read all of them, because you can't. You have 1 week to fill the job, 1,000 applications. You got to find a way to speed up the process. So if you come across my desk, Darquavion Williams, that's going in the trash. Sorry, not sorry. It's going in the trash. Because why? Because I know you got some problems. I know you probably come from the hood, single parent.
I ain't gonna lie, man.
Issue. I know that from right away.
I ain't with you on that one, man.
Now hold on, wait, hold, stay with me.
Go ahead, I'm here.
Contrarily, if your name is like a stripper name, I don't know,
Candy.
Yeah, Candy, Starlet, some kind of just Amber Rain, that's going in the trash too. You probably white, it's going in the trash.
Mercedes.
Yeah,
Shaquisha.
That's these names that show a lack of care from the parents. I don't care if you black, white, whatever, it's going in the trash right away. I just know that, right? Because that happens. This is why people, they shorten their name. It doesn't matter if they're Indian, if they're white, if they're black. They'll say TK Williams, VA, whatever kind of Indian last name, to make it easier, make it more approachable, and make it more acceptable. People could say that it's racist or whatever, but I think it's just a matter of, you got to compete with people. People change their name, they shorten their name up, they go by nicknames. When you voted for the governor, I voted for Bill Lee out here in Tennessee. Is that his name? Is that his name? Bill Clinton, is that his name? Bill de Blasio, is that his name? No, it's not. These are all white men. Why did they change their name? So why can't we do that as well? We got to get off this whole pride thing and this feelings thing and worried about having success, worried about getting results. That's what actually matters.
But
let me jump in here real quick, and I want to let Joe let you talk. This is the only thing ever that I probably disagree with ABL on. Like, I think that I disagree slightly, not everything. I think if I saw names that I could not read or pronounce properly, they're gone. If even if it's an African name, Buntawadu or something, I'm like, I don't even know what that says, and I'm not finna sit here and butcher this dude's name. Boom, it's gone. And I think that's why a lot of people that come from Africa or come from foreign countries that have these names that are not typically American names, they may get rid of those because it's hard to say them. You don't understand them. I don't think that I would judge a person based on their name necessarily. Like if I saw a guy named Tremarchion or something like that, and you know it's all spelled weird, I would.
Sorry,
there would be an idea in my mind that his mom and them probably smoked crack or something at some point when they named him. However, I do know people do change, and he may be a product of success, even though his mom and them screwed him out of his name. But I do think that people should be cognizant of the names that they name their children, because it can have a lasting effect, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Because La Sherelle, some girl I grew up with named La Sherelle, and all of these names may invoke a stigma against another person. So I don't think that people should do that. I don't think you should judge a person based on their name, but I do think it can cause a discriminatory effect.
I don't think I totally disagree with you, AB, on that one. I think
no, hold on, Joe. Let's do it like this. What do you disagree with? You disagree with his philosophy, or you disagree with the discrimination based on name? Or
discrimination based on names.
Okay.
So so throwing out applications based off of names. I think for me, if I'm an HR person, I'm looking at qualifications first. I'm running searches on my keywords. Okay, if you're a software engineer, I'm looking at what whether it's PHP or Ruby on Rails or all these different things. I'm searching that first. Whether you worked at Microsoft or these places like that, I'm running that first, and then I'm throwing anybody else who doesn't qualify from that first. Then I can actually start my filtering process.
Let me jump in here real quick. Let me give Joe. Let me jump in here real quick, Joe, and then ABL. So Joe, let me just preface it like this. If you could only look at the name, would you be biased if you could only see a name, whether it's a female name, male name, whether it's a hard to read name, whether it's Lamite, Lil Jordan, somebody that's a real name. Somebody named their kid Lil Jordan. So would you if you only could look at names, how would you separate the people? Would you have any bias towards or against a certain name?
I wouldn't, because I mean, and I think it also kind of depends on the job we're talking about, because again, I'm applying a bias standard of what is an acceptable name, right? If I'm applying a bias standard of what is an acceptable name, it's so subjective.
But if you are running a company, right, and you know this company is an international company or something that there's high profile people, investors and stuff that have to deal with these individuals, and you go to look through a resume of names, would you be comfortable with presenting a person in the climate of this country where people may judge them based on their name? Would you be comfortable presenting somebody that's name is like Trey LaCharelle Dante or something?
As a business person, if I felt like it was affecting my business, no. I mean, I agree with you.
I was about to say,
sorry.
So ABL, go ahead, ABL.
I feel like, I agree with you. If I feel like it was going to affect my business, then I would have to.
Even not the ghetto names, even the names. ABL, go ahead.
Okay,
go ahead.
Now check it out. See, I have an anecdote just for myself, just something I went through, but this happens a lot, and I know it because I've been here. I know a lot of guys that have businesses and they hire employees. I know what it is. Back a few years ago, probably about a decade or more ago, and I was still doing my graphic design thing. I went out for a job with a starting pay of $40,000. Okay, $40,000. This was one job available that had 5,000 applications for one job from all over the world. 5,000. I said 10. 5,000 applications for one job. India, China, US, UK. 40 grand. So at a certain point, it's graphic design. It's not that difficult to do. And it wasn't even like some kind of intensive thing. You putting catalogs together of like not even really anything in depth. Anybody that can run Photoshop can pretty much do it. I think now they probably go on Fiverr and get some Indian guy or Pakistani guy, but that's a different story anyway. So at a certain point, everyone's skills become the same. So if you're trying to go through the resume looking for different skills and different experience, out of that 5,000, you're going to have 1,000 that got all the same skill. It's not really going to be anybody that's leaps and bounds beyond the other. And if they are, they probably won't want the job 40 grand anyway. They're probably overqualified. You got 1,000 people to sift through. They're going to do elimination. Okay, crazy name. Nope, not going to do it. Misspellings in the resume. Nope, not going to do it. They have to do that to get down to figure out who they're going to get. And then sometimes the ultimate way somebody gets a job is somebody. That's usually how it goes. So if you can't compete with knowing somebody, you can't compete on the name, then you're not competing, in my humble opinion. You got to do whatever you can to make yourself be the best candidate available. That's what I was told by my mom, my dad, everybody. That's why my name was a discussion between my parents. It was a discussion. They debated about it. What are we going to name him? First, it was going to be Isaac, because that's my father's people's maiden name. My granny's maiden name, Isaac.
Her name.
It was a surname, yeah. So that was gonna be my first name. Mom was like, nah, he's black. I want to have a name Isaac. So then Anthony came from, for real, that was a discussion. I swear everything. So then Anthony came from my uncle and my granddad and all of them on my dad's side. It was a discussion. It was a real thing. But I feel like the way it is now, don't nobody care. It's like, oh, that name sounds cute. I'm going to use that. J. Marquavius, that sounds good. I'm going to just select that. Now, find me anybody on the Forbes top 100, 500 that has a name like that. Anybody. You're not going to find anybody that has that.
I
Black,
think there's
white, Indian, nobody, because it's an important thing. And again, it goes back to the parents. Do you care about your child? Are they going to have a good upbringing? Are they going to be raised to be successful? That's it.
my cardiologist, his name is, I don't even know how to say his name. His first name probably have like 13 letters in it, and his last name have probably 15 letters in it.
Probably some Indian, right?
Huh?
Right. Is he Indian or African?
Yeah, he's Indian. So he go by Chris. His first name is Chris, and then his last name is even abbreviated, even on his website. But if you go and you look him up on the hospital's website, they have his full name, and I can't even read it. Now, he goes by Chris, and he even abbreviates his last name. Now, that's his legal name is longer. But I will say that whether we like it or not, there is discrimination based on name. And knowing that as a parent, you have to say, what name am I going to name my kid? My parents didn't name me Brandon. I mean, when people see my name, they don't know if I'm white or black. My brother's name is Bobby Joe. So when people, we from the South. So, my brother's name is Bobby Joe. He the third. And, so people don't really know what Bobby is. So I think personally, when you name your children, you should be cognizant that there will be some discrimination, and it may not just be based on race. It could be based on pronunciation. It could be based on misconception, or it could be based on people's experience with that person that matched that name, right? So if you have a person named Joel that was like your best friend, you see Joel on a resume versus Devontrier, which is my cousin's name, which her name is cute, but on the resume it's probably not that cute. So you have Devontrier, you're like, oh, I know a Joel. That's more common versus somebody that's at had a certain name. I don't know, Craig, you got something to add to that?
Yeah, well, I figured I'd let
then
you
Joe,
guys,
you can jump on.
If it seems I wasn't paying attention, I'm over here researching, looking up something, because I remember seeing a skit that Larry Elder did on this subject about hiring bias studies, resumes with black and white Hispanic names treated the same. He broke down where they actually did a study on if people are being biased based off their names compared to them flip-flopping around. I don't know if you can pull it up, Brandon. It's on YouTube, Larry Elder with Epic Times. It is Where's the Proof of Systemic Racism? That was in June 30th, 2020. And I could fast forward it to the exact timestamp to where he's actually talking about the subject. So I don't know if you can pull that up so everybody can see that.
I mean,
It
says reparations hearing idea. What's the name of the thing?
It's Larry Elder on Epic Time. It's Where's the Proof of Systemic Racism with the question mark. And that was June 30th, 20.
Oh yeah, that's hard.
I might be able to.
Yeah, I'll look for it while you talk. Go ahead. I'll look for it while you talk.
Can you guys hear that?
I got it. I'll pull it up. It's a 13-minute video, right?
Yeah, and I can tell you the timestamp to go to. You want to go to?
Yeah, give me the timestamp. Let me.
9 minutes and 31 seconds into that video.
I'm gonna show everybody. I won't put it up on the screen. 9 minutes and what?
9 minutes and 33 seconds. 9 minutes and 33 seconds.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna stop here.
Larry Elder actually did a skit on it, and he's talking about exactly what you're talking about as far as names on applications. Are they being biased towards them? And then there's he Larry Elder, he'll debunk something quick, Joe. So he showed another study.
Have him come debate me now.
Well, he getting ready to put it on for you now.
Hold on. Did you say have Larry Elder debate you?
Larry Elder, that's what he does.
Oh, bro, that'd be a nightmare.
Nah, for him.
Look, Larry Elder, I wouldn't debate Larry Elder, and I agree with him. So now I ain't saying punk out, man, but I'm just saying, hey, that's a tough
9 minutes,
task.
32 seconds.
All right, so I got it on. I'm gonna hit play. Let me turn the volume up. All right. I don't hear anything. Let me unmute it. All right.
Employers were
How does it
just as
sound?
likely to discriminate against these alleged African American sounding names as would be white employers. And what about so-called white names like Gertrude and Penelope? Turns out those names also faced discrimination. But more important, is it even true? And why are we focusing on first names as opposed to last names? One study did just that. One of the criticisms of the study that purported to show that African American names were discriminated against was that Lakeisha and Jamal can denote socioeconomic class, and that employers may have made assumptions about education and income rather than race. So these researchers conducted an experiment using surnames that the US Census shows overwhelmingly belong to whites, blacks, and Hispanics without using first names to signify gender. The resumes from the fictional.
So let me just jump in here real quick. I think that he said a lot, and I think we can kind of address this. But I think it's interesting that he did that because I didn't think about surnames from white people because the last name is very interesting. Like you got the common names. Like all of us on Jackson is on here. Craig, I don't know your last name. Is it Long?
It's Long,
Logan, and Tatum. Like these are very common names. And you look at any of our founding fathers. I can say the founding fathers on the black side. You look at you go down the list. George Washington Carver. Sarah Bree Love is kind of different, but Sarah Bree Love, which is Madam C.J. Walker, which her born name was Sarah Bree Love. I mean, you can go down Martin Luther King. All of these black people in our history had all common American names. They didn't retain African names. But did anybody want to add something to that before I let Larry Elder finish?
Now, one thing about it, if they're going to go about surnames, I'm not really sure. I think that kind of goes to my point about sometimes abbreviation. Like you abbreviate your first name. See Dolores Tucker back in the day who was doing the hip hop censoring. What was her first name? I don't know. All I know was C Dolores Tucker. It could have been some kind of crazy, ridiculous name, but it don't matter because you remember the Dolores Tucker part. So I think you can change your name up and it'll benefit you in your life if your name is kind of weird.
Like W.E.B. Du Bois.
Correct.
Yep.
There you go.
His name was, he abbreviated his first name, and I would have to look it up. I don't even remember his name. So I just know W.E.B. Du Bois. So you say Du Bois or Du Bois, whichever way you want to do it. But a lot of people in our history all had common names, Booker T. Washington, I go down the list. There's so many that's flowing through my mind, but
those were slave names a lot of times.
Yeah, but you see when they became free, they retained their name because
I agree. I mean, just like you retain your accent depending on where you come from. Like it's hard to shift from that when you don't have something to go back to. So if you were born in India, you're going to talk a certain way. If you're born in England, you're going to talk a certain way. I mean, it's almost like it's birthed in you. So you don't know anything else. Even if you hear something else, you don't know anything else. So I don't think that really proves that there's not discrimination.
Well, no, I think it does because you have. I mean, this is fresh. These people are fresh out of slavery. You know, they fresh off the press. Nowadays, you know, your name is Jackson. I mean, most people don't even know where it really came from, or they have no history of it, so they're less likely to change it. But when you're talking about a man who was a slave and became free, you would think that would be the moment of I want to escape my slave owner's name. You know, and so a lot of people. I mean, I don't know. I would have to do research.
I mean, a
on
lot
why
of
they
them
didn't
didn't even know how to spell. They didn't know how to.
But that wasn't for like Booker T. Washington or anybody like that. I mean, they were very, you know, high functioning intellectual people. George Washington Carver was probably one of the smartest scientists ever. But see, they never changed it, and I think they didn't change it because they understood in order to get ground in society, you had to have a common name that was either known or respected. And I think some of these slave owners had a respected name too that some of the slaves inherited.
But also, why change it and change it to what? For what reason? Like, okay, you're in America, you're speaking English. What are you going to change it to? What's your point of reference? Why? What's the purpose?
But who's imposing that standard, right? That's where the question becomes. I think who's imposing the standard, right? And I think that doesn't disprove what I'm saying is that if there's a standard that we have to uphold, namely you have to name yourself after these quote unquote names in order to be looked at as a common American, or to make it easier for me to pronounce your name, whatever the assumption is there. I mean, that's not really helping. You know,
it's all about where you are right now in society. Depending upon where you are, it's the old thing. When in Rome, do as the Romans. Just like the basketball player, Giannis Antetokounmpo. His parents are Nigerian. They gave Giannis and his two brothers Greek names because they moved to Greece. Because they understand when in Rome, do as the Romans. It's simple.
Well, here's another thing. You know, what name do they go to? Because technically, are you going to go to your ancestry? I mean, are you associated in Africa with people who sold slaves?
I mean, like, exactly what you going, and then do you even know that? And why would you go back? You know, you're going to go back to the Ashanti that kidnapped you and sold you to the white man? Like, why are we going to do that?
not all of them were sold, but I'm going to say that when.
So how were they brought from Africa? Did the white man go to the shore of Africa with a net and capture them like they were crabs on the beach?
He said not all of them. So I'm assuming that he realized that most of them were, but there were some. But
out of the ones that weren't sold, I mean, how did that happen? Did the white man go? I mean,
we're kind of getting off. That's kind of off topic, though. I don't want to get into that. But I'm saying
you brought it up. I'm just asking.
I mean, you know, you seem to know. I think
I'm asking you.
I mean, you seem to know, so I don't want to really get. I don't want to get off topic. I want to stay on this topic. So when I think when it comes to this whole idea of names, like different cultures are beautiful. You know, God created us all different. The Tower of Babel. You know, He scattered us for a reason, and so different cultures, different like. You have different foods out there. When you go to a different country, whether you go to, you know, Mexico or whether you go to Greece or anywhere like that, you're experiencing their culture. You're saying, okay, you bring something you do things differently. You speak a different language. You talk differently. Everything about, even though we're human, we all share in this human experience. You bring a different flavor to this human experience that I enjoy. Right. So this whole idea of like, I got to do as the Romans do all the time is flawed, because, again, you wouldn't even have different cultures. You wouldn't even have Chinese food if they just cooked hot dogs and hamburgers.
But Chinese food ain't even Chinese. That's a funny part. Again, you do as
I mean, you get my point.
The Chinese people, you made a different point. You actually proving our point. Chinese food is Americanized because when in Rome, do as the Romans. They're not going to serve dog and cat over here legally, like they eat over there. When in Rome, do as the Romans. They can't do what they do over there. They can't force the burqa on the women, the beekeeper outfit with a little mailbox slot right there, like they do in Afghanistan. We can get the baklava, all that kind of good stuff, but we can't get them beekeeper outfits. Again, we have American culture. When in Rome, do as the Romans. Simple. Now, if I go to Afghanistan and I'm bringing my wife, she got to put on the beekeeper.
And this is what I'll say. You know, sometimes when you go to different cultures, they may give you a nickname. You know, I don't know this to be true, but maybe if you go to an African country, they may give you a name that's more, associated with their language or names that are reasonable.
Akata or Yimbo, all that good stuff. You're gonna get caught that in Nigeria. You're not no Nigerian or African. You're an American. So
Yeah,
that
and
passport, you're an American.
And I think of it like this. I say, what's wrong with being an American now? We've been over here, but we're freed in this country. Why can't American be your root? Why can't that be your new established root? Especially if you were born here, even if you came from Africa in slave times, you were born here in America. This is now your country. You are now an American citizen. To be honest, you're not a Nigerian citizen. You're an American citizen.
Right. And I would definitely not disagree with that. But within America, there's different cultures, there's different dialects, there's different ways of doing things, there's different traditions, there's different religions, and they all bring a certain uniqueness to the pot that we all share and we all benefit from. Again, who's imposing the standard is the question I have not been really answered. Who's imposing this standard?
I don't think it's a necessary
all of us as Americans we impose standard.
Yeah, I don't think it's a person imposing it or it's a particular race. I think it's almost like the free market is imposing this. Like, it's just human nature to say, I can't pronounce that name, so I may in a shuffle of 1,000 names, I may discriminate against names I cannot pronounce. Or I may be favorable to names that are more common to my grandmother's name is, my grandmother's name is Sue. My other grandmother's name is Louise. So, I may be more partial to names that I recognize. And if you are working in a field of people who have particular names, you it may be biased. Like, for instance, if you were in the hood and you trying to hire hood dudes, or people that you presume is black, because if you don't have that on the application and you see LaCrayshawn or something like that, you're like, okay, that dude black. I'm gonna bring him in. What was it? But it's not always true, because one of my teachers at Dunbar High School, which is an all-black school, named after the famous poet Paul Ernest Dunbar, Lucretia Godfrey was our home ec teacher, and she was white. So, you look at Lucretia, I don't know what her mama was thinking about naming her Lucretia, but Lucretia Godfrey was a white lady. So I think that her name may be discriminated against on the application, even though she's in fact white. So let's finish what Larry Elder is saying, because he probably make an incredible point here. Let me roll the film.
Black applicants bore the last names Washington and Jefferson, while those from white candidates bore Anderson and Thompson, and those from Hispanic candidates bore Hernandez and Garcia. On average, 11.4% of resumes received a response from an employer, and there were no statistically significant differences across race, ethnic, or gender groups, end of quote. Or as Raven...
Is that it?
I think that's it.
He started talking about Raven and stuff, so... Now, how do I get this out? I think it's this. Okay, perfect. So, I think we beat the dead horse. I think at the end of the day, we all understand that, your name can be very important. The name Tatum, I'm very proud of my name. My son's names are Tatum. It's my dad's name is Tatum. I create the value in the name Tatum. I'm not trying to go look back in Nigeria, because I think we have ancestry in Nigeria from my ancestry.com thing. But I'm not looking back and trying to figure out what my name used to be. It'll be cool to see your lineage, but my lineage is in America. Generations of Americans, and I love this country, and I was born here, and this is where I'm from. I was birthed here. I wasn't birthed anywhere in Africa. I know nothing about anything in Africa, anywhere. So not to say that I don't share African lineage. It's just that that's not who I am and where I'm from. But I do understand the value of being reasonable. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, you show up to you should be able to dress how you want to a business interview. No, not really. Is it European to wear a suit and tie? Is it European to wear the jacket with a blazer with a like Larry Elder is dressed? Maybe. I don't think Africans dress like that, but you live in America, brother. You better show up reasonable to an interview, or people may
but black folks
look at you sideways.
No,
I'm saying. Go ahead.
Black folks didn't care about that back in the 40s, 50s, and the 60s anyway. We dressed up, we dressed nice. It's a problem now with the culture we have now. I always go back to its culture and what we value and the principles. If we go back to when they faced real adversities when it came to racial tensions, right, racism, they respected themselves. They dressed well. We have a culture now where like I want to show up and be able to show up to an interview in flip flops, and then it's an executive position. It goes to culture, and right now we have destructive aspects of our culture that are just ignorant. We got great things that are within Black culture, but there's just ignorant parts of it as well. We can all the
Joe,
way
do
to
you-
names.
Go ahead, Craig. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, I want to.
I would say, Craig, do you disagree that a lot of the ailments that occur within the Black community is because of culture? Would you say culture is more prevalent than discrimination?
It's culture and generational decision making, and I ain't gonna say it's because of our culture it creates racism. No, I'm not gonna say that. What I'll say is, let's don't only say white folks look at us or get afraid or act differently because they see somebody Black. There's some Black folks where I look around like, all right, little Ray and Pookie are over there in the corner. So it's a culture thing. There's things within our culture that is just destructive. There's things that we do that are generational decision making, from how we eat, how we value exercise, how we value our finances, where our dollars go, education, how we dress, how we treat each other. Do we support it? It's a culture. So we can't point the finger and say, it's this, and never reform or fix the things that we know is destructive.
You know what I'm saying that the question is, do you think that culture carries more value of the negativity that we see in America, or is it discrimination and racism or prejudice? Which one is it? Our culture.
I think you're talking about culture as America as a whole.
No. I'm saying like in the Black community, the ailments of the Black community, the unemployment rates, the
right now, our culture is. If I were to say, hey, what's one thing that we need to go right into, is culture. If we used to have a culture, regardless of the terrain, whatever we were experiencing, racism, whatever, we used to have a culture where we had more intact families. We were married. We had, it's slipping my mind. We valued religion. We were Christians. We believed in God. We respected ourselves. We dressed. So culture, yes, culture plays a major role in a lot of the things that happen and going forward. Culturally, on how we buy things and what we value, when we could probably invest and do other things, like he's a mortgage loans guy. Dude, I can.
Well, Joe, let me ask Joe the question, because you're in the mortgage business. I know a lot of people say that the mortgage business is discriminatory against Black people. Now, truth be told, do you deal with? Are you in this area where you deal with a lot of Black people?
I deal with some. I don't deal with a lot. I mean, I deal with more white people than anything.
So what are the percentage? You talk 60-40 or 90-10? Or
it's
even more
like
than
90-10, 90 more white people than 10 Black.
Do you, when you deal with Black people, do you have problems with credit score?
Giannis.
No, I am.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. No, seriously.
I'm saying, does it stand out to you enough where you say, "Dang, man, I wish brothers would get their credit together, man." You know,
I think I have more problem with them with being organized. I think with them, they're just not organized a lot of times. Like they try to come and get a loan, and then you got to educate them on what you actually need to have in order to get a loan. But as opposed to white people, where you deal with them and they're just more organized. They're just like, oh, I'm only missing like one document. Oh, I got that, and it's in your inbox tomorrow. As opposed to like credit scores and things like that. No, you got some Black people out there with some great credit scores. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Black people are definitely. I'm working on a lady's loan right now, and she's flipping a property right now, and she's doing. I mean, this she's from New Jersey. She's doing incredible. So yeah, I mean, it's all over. It's kind of both ends, because I deal with some white people who got bad credit scores. It's kind of like it's both ends.
Yeah, one of my friends, we had a conversation, and I think he was in mortgage loans and stuff too, and he's like, B, I'm gonna be honest, like Black people come in here and they don't have good credit, and so they think that that I'm not giving them a loan because they black, and it's like, no, they didn't mess their credit up, and they don't understand. And it's not necessarily the credit score; it's certain things on their credit that's preventing them from being able to get the loan that they want. So, I mean, that's interesting, because I think personally, you know, when I was growing up, and it's just me, this anecdotal. When I was growing up, nobody talked about credit. Everybody, oh, black people have bad credit, you know, but nobody talked about how to build credit. We weren't even thinking about credit. You know, some instances that happened in my family messed my credit up. I had a 520 credit score when I actually found out what my score was. I went to buy a car, had 14% interest rate, and I ran my credit, and I had like a 520, and I was like, is this good or not? And I'm not saying that this is, I you know, I have an obligation to go look it up on my own, but dude, I thought of 5. I say, is this good or not? And they like, no, your credit bad. Now my credit is over 800 now, but it took years of me being consistent and payments and knowing what can fall off my credit. I should be a spokesperson for Credit Karma, which I haven't paid a dime for, and it got my credit score to 800 because I just followed what it said. You know, here's the, you know, I got these debts, I pay this, and I had to wait 7 years. I had to charge off on my credit. I wait 7 years for that to fall off. But I don't think that's valued like voting. Nobody voted in my family. Voting, what? Ain't nobody vote. Your vote don't count. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's some culture that really affect us more so than discrimination and racism could ever do.
And you know what? I think what's happening right now with the culture is that a lot of black folks are trying to find their culture, because as you were saying, Craig, like before, like in the 40s and the 50s, black folks had no problem wearing suit and tie all the time, church, going to work, going to school, whatever. Suit and tie, I'm gonna look nice, right? It was a normal thing. Now you got kids that never had a suit before. When they get to be 25 years old, they get in the very first suit. They don't even know what a shoehorn is, never seen it before. They don't understand how to really dress up. They've never done it, but this was different back in the day. Now it's a matter of, you know, I'm trying to live my best life. It's social media, it's Instagram. And then you have little pockets of different kind of subcultures. You got the Afrocentric, you got all this weird spirituality with rocks and crystals and all kind of weird stuff, rather than what we had before, which is more of a American family focused type culture. That's disintegrated, and now we're kind of just lost, trying to find our way.
I mean, I'll say there's instances of our culture that's good, but there's some that's just bad. Just trying to buy a car. If you were indiscriminately purchasing things that meant nothing and you didn't pay your bills or whatever the case was, the reason why you got bad credit, when you do go to get a car, you're going to get higher interest rates, not because you're black. It's across the board. If you got not so good credit, you're going to have higher interest rate trying to buy something. Therefore, you're paying more in interest and have to pay longer period of time till you finally pay it off. It's not something that's systemic. It's if you got bad credit, you're just not going to have the better opportunity as somebody that has an 800 credit score where they're getting lower interest rates. I at one point, I think I got a 787 right now. I used to have an 800 credit score, and I went into the bank, and it was the underwriter was a black dude. He said, it is very rare that I see black folks coming here in the bank and have an 800 credit score. And you know, I don't know how true that is. Like Brandon said, I'll probably have to research and see what is the percentage of us having the 800 plus credit score. But I do know that having a better credit score, you're going to get definitely going to get advantages. You're going to get lower interest rates on things versus you having 24% interest rates on things. So it's not systemic. It's not because you're black. It's what's your culture? What is it that you're valuing? Are you paying your bills? Are you maintaining your work? Can you keep a job more than a year? Right? We have to peel back the onion and look at different things that tend to, we all know the more you peel back the onion, the more you start crying. So we got to look into our culture and how we go, the things that we value, and, you know, and peel that onion back and really be honest and brutally honest with ourselves here in America as a whole.
Here's an article.
Go ahead.
Here's an article right here. Now, of course, you know, there's a lot of fake news that go on, and I don't know, but this is CBS or CB, I don't know what it is. I think it's NBC or ABC, whatever that logo is. So they did a little thing. It says Black and Hispanic Americans often have lower credit scores. Here's why they're hitting hard. And so this is an article that talks about the credit score. In context, 37% of white Americans report having bad or no credit. Only 18% of Asians report the similar credit score. About 50 54% of African Americans reported have no credit or poor to fair credit scores. So, you know, I mean, this is just numbers, and if we just take this at, I mean, this is, if you look at success in America, you say Asian people are doing better than white people,
culture,
and then black people are doing worse than Asian and white, and a lot of it is what decisions are being made that got black people. Because as far as I know, credit ain't racist. I don't think that my credit, the bureaus know if I'm black or not. They just know you missed this payment. You missed this payment, Mr. Tatum. You got 3 payments behind. Oh, now you got a charge off, you know. So, but Joe, you disagreed. I saw you shaking your head when Craig was talking. What did you disagree with?
So I agree with some of what can you guys hear me? I kind of blanked out for a little bit.
Hear you well, yeah.
Okay. So I agree with some of what he's saying for sure. I mean, actually pretty much all of it. I just don't think that it completes the story. You know, you definitely have to look at our culture and look at personal responsibility goes without saying to me. It's like, you got to look at the culture. You got to look at your savings responsibilities, your work history, education, you know, keeping up your credit score, educating yourself. All that stuff has got to be on us, right, to do, right? But then you also have, you know, history practices of banking discrimination, you know, redlining. You have even during the 2008 financial crisis, you had loan officers who were targeting Black and Hispanic borrowers, and knowing that these things were not going to pay off, but they were so caused. And again, it may not have been racism, quote unquote, but it could have been just, you know, hey, here's the weakest link. Let's make a bunch of money, sell this junk to Wall Street, and let the house cards fall whenever it does. And so
yeah, so go ahead, keep going.
And so what I'm saying is that, you know, you do have a history. If you look at articles on JP Morgan and Bank of America, they admit to practicing banking discrimination. And it's not like this stuff is not on record. This stuff is on record.
So ABL, I'm gonna let you go. Let me make one comment, then ABL, you go for it.
We didn't put the finger up.
ABL put the finger up, it's on now. So but I hear what you're saying, Joe. And Thomas Sowell wrote an incredible book, and I need to finish reading it. It's called Discrimination and Disparities. And what he said in the book is just because there's disparities doesn't necessarily mean there's discrimination. And in this sense, just because there's disproportionate outcomes don't necessarily mean it's racism. And when you look at the numbers and you say, well, black people, 50% of them don't have great credit, versus whites at 30 and, you know, Asians at 18. So when you look at it like that, you say, well, maybe they're predatory, you know, they're being predators towards people who have lower credit. Unfortunately, minorities have lower credit. ABL, go ahead.
And the thing about it is, it's a double-edged sword, though, as far as was it a subprime mortgage?
Yep.
Because if those loans weren't given out, then they couldn't have got the money. They couldn't have been able. They wouldn't have been able to get the house. So if they didn't get the loan, then it's, oh, you're being racist for not allowing me access to capital. But then when you give it to me, oh, you should have known I couldn't pay it back. That's your fault. You should have not given me that money because you know I can't pay it. So you can't win. You can't win.
But who passed those policies?
If you give the money, you're racist. If you don't give it, you're also racist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see that. I see that being true, man. I mean, you got to think. You say if black people would have taken responsibility. I mean, not saying all black people, but the people who, you know, failed out of these loans. If the people would have actually taken advantage of them properly, this would have been a blessing. People that would normally wouldn't be able to get a loan or to have a fresh start or to flip a house that they, you know, trying to be an entrepreneur, then they wouldn't even have these opportunities if they wouldn't have given grace. But through giving grace, you know, contributed to a catastrophe where you have all these people defaulting and their credit messed up and they'll never be the same. So I agree with ABL that it's a double-edged sword. You know, if I was kind of lower credit score, but I'm working my way up and I'm trying to get an opportunity, and it's 2015, and I know by 2018 my credit will be better because the whatever stuff will fall off my credit, and you know I got more loans and stuff, and I've been paying them on time. I would love for a new opportunity, but you got to do something with it. What were you going to say, Joe?
I was going to say that it's not just, I don't know if it's a double-edged sword. I think when it comes to those practices, you got to look, a lot of these things are really sort of long-winded arguments. Like it's not just like sort of one thing. You got to look at the government and how they were pushing for housing and putting laws,
They put the policies and the laws and put the pressures on them institutes to give out those type of loans to people that can't.
Yeah. And
Who did that?
That was the whole
It was in
point.
2008.
And that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, okay, you're not giving out enough loans to these low income people. You gotta give them access to capital. So okay, we're going to pass these laws and put pressure on you. Go out there and give out what they call ghetto loans. What they called them. That's what they actually said. It wasn't me saying that. So then they gave out the ghetto loans, and of course, people are defaulting on their loans because they can't pay. You got all kind of crazy things in there because they know they can't pay it, so they got to have mechanisms to get some kind of money. So when they defaulted, that's when the whole house of cards came crumbling down. What they should have done is not pressure these banks to give out the loans in the first place because they know people can't pay it back. And they're doing that right now, too, to a certain extent, FHA and stuff like that. Like when I was getting, I don't want to get too far into the details, but I've heard about you can get a house for $400,000 while your income is 60 grand and you could put like 3% down. Are you going to be able to afford that in 5 years, 10 years? Are you going to be able to afford that? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's interesting that you say that because, at what point does this fall on personal responsibility? Like, the question is, why do Black and Hispanic people have such poor credit? Because I don't think credit is racism. Your credit score is your credit score is your credit score. Did you default? Did you do this? Did you pay it? Did you have certain accounts open? Do you have a payment history? All of these different things factor in. So is it discrimination or is it culture and behavior that leads to discriminatory outcomes? Is what my question is. Does everybody see it that way? I see it like maybe it's decisions that Black people are making or Hispanic people are making that got them at a position where half of them don't have good credit. I know my family member be making real bad decisions, and especially when you broke and you live in the hood, you try to ball and you come up off of stuff you really can't afford because you want to feel like you belong in certain places. When I was growing up, man, people would spend all their money on tennis shoes because if you had the J's, bro, your status went up here if you got the new J's. And people couldn't really afford that. And I'm not going to bring my family into it, but sometimes people would get loans and credit card debt to get shoes and clothes so they can look apart, and they ain't never going to pay that back.
They'll finance rims.
Yeah.
They'll put rims on an old what's the police car that everybody used to drive?
Monte Carlo.
No, the Grand Marquis, the Grand Marquis, or the Ford Crown Vic.
The Crown Vic. They will, dude. I used to live in the hood. I know.
Yeah. I drove a Grand Marquis, which is the Mercury version of the Crown Vic.
Dude, they have the rims are worth more than the car. The Crown Vic clearly needs a new alternator, but they will literally put a finance on rims, man. So is that across the board for all Americans that are Black? No. But if we're going to really dive into these areas that most of the social justice warriors always want to bring up and talk about, let's talk about it. Some of the things that the decisions that they make affects them, man. It's not a racial thing. It's your decisions, man.
Some of it is, but some of it's not. I think, like I said, this idea that is, and I think you kind of.
Well, give me an example. Give me an example of what's not.
Okay, access to capital, right?
Give me an example. What type of capital? Like a business loan?
Venture capital. Less than 1% of Black people receive venture capital. Less than 0.5% of women receive venture capital. Most people who receive venture capital are white males, and the second ones are Asian, and the third are like people from India and places like that. And
hold on, let's start there. Let's start with venture capital. Do you think, Joel, that they're not getting it because these companies, these firms are discriminating against women and people of color, or do you think that these people are coming to the table and they don't have what it takes to get this venture capital loan? Let me give you an example. I applied for a venture capital loan for one of my companies. I didn't get it. Now, I know why I didn't get it, because they probably want to see a little bit more of a personal investment and a little bit more of capital history before they give me a venture capital loan, especially at the amount that I was asking for. But it's because I didn't come to the table with enough up front. And I don't know. I don't think it's because I'm black. So could it be possible? I mean, is there reasonable that the reason why these things happen is because these certain groups of people don't come correct when they ask for venture capital loans? Ideas, they don't have enough backing, they don't have, some of these things. Go ahead, Joe, real quick, and then Craig jump in.
Okay, I'll let Craig go and then I'm gonna go. But just
I had an ABL on y'all.
Let me get my time after he goes though.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of piggyback off because Brandon hit it on the nail. He hit it on the nail. It's unfair to say, oh well, white folks get more venture capital loans versus Asians and black folks. We got to dive into it. We got to look into it more. If you're an institute, you're a bank, and I came to you, I got no business history whatsoever. We already know the banks are looking for three different collaterals. How much money do you make? What's your credit score? And what can we take? Here I am. I come to you. I don't own a home. My credit is subpar. It's 630. And then I don't have no business history, but yet I'm over here asking for $250,000. It's unrealistic. We have to learn how to go about getting the loans and playing the game, man. And black folks, we can't blanket statement and go across the board and say, oh, it's because we're black folks is getting discriminated on. We have to learn how to position ourselves to be able to do business, man. We can't think that we're going to go walk into a bank or any type of institute with none of those three collateral that they look for, including having no business history. You went and you got a nice business plan written all up, but you ain't got no business history whatsoever. You got nothing to show for it. And you want to march right on up into the bank and just ask for a significant amount of money. It just don't work that way, man.
Okay.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. First of all, we're not talking about loans. We're talking about equity investments. So first of all, most of these guys who are receiving venture capital are young guys who dropped out of college, who have no business history, who have no collateral, and who have no experience, nothing to take, nothing. And they're getting funded based off of ideas that's written on a napkin. So this idea
give me an example.
I'm gonna give you an example. There's a guy who got, and you guys can look him up.
I think he froze.
Told me on that, but it's an app that rewards people based off of game. Like, so I think they play games and then they get rewards based off of the game. This guy got funded, I think over I don't know I forget the amount. I think it's $10 million. He was a 17-year-old kid. He's an Asian guy, got funded on a napkin. Idea on a napkin, $10 million. So
there's some key things you just
but
said.
But hold on. Let's get to the racist part. Like, do you think
so what I'm saying is that black people are in the same positions, if not better sometimes. Black people come with great ideas, great business plans, all these different things. Women too. And they come and they apply. And the difference is because people like to do business with who they are familiar with, who looks like them, who they can have a beer with, who they laugh at their jokes and
dang, he cutting out.
Eternity.
Yeah, he's cutting out. But
Joe,
while we trying to wait for him to come back,
Joe, you cutting out. You got to fix it. Do something with your internet and come back in.
There was some key while we're trying to wait for him to come back.
My cut.
I gotta take him out and message him.
Bring
Go
him back
ahead.
on.
Go ahead.
There was a key thing he said about the Asian dude. He created an app. So we need more. We need more information. There's more to the backstory. The guy had an app. He already has something to show for it before he went to present these things to these people, whether it's on a napkin or not. And I'm sure black folks are in the same type of position, but it still goes to the same thing. we have to learn how to set ourselves up to be able to get these type of opportunities, man. We can't just automatically revert it to it's because I'm black.
Yeah.
There's more variables to this.
Go ahead. Let me say one thing, and then AB, I'm gonna jump into you. Like these are the things that I often talk about is that, how did he present this? You know what I'm saying? What venture capital company or did he go to? Did he, was there anything else involved other than just saying he was Asian and he got this and he only had an app and he did it on a napkin? It's like, what state was he in? Did he have some kind of collateral, or even if they
What
didn't
connections
necessarily
did he
need
have?
Yeah, what connections did he have?
I
Did he
mean,
know people?
It happens often. I mean, have you guys seen?
Let me go to ABL real quick. Let me go to ABL, Joe, and then we'll come back. ABL, you had something to say?
Now, we're talking about, equity deals, venture capital, things of that nature. I'm a big fan of Shark Tank. Been watching them since the very beginning. You got black sharks on there. You got Damon John. There's also the lady that works with Khloe Kardashian, one of the Kardashians on their little their skin, their legging line or whatever they got. She's gonna be in there. She's black. Now, why is it that I don't see a lot of black folks on Shark Tank? I mean, you're on TV. It's very inclusive. To have anybody black on there be a positive, but I rarely see us on Shark Tank. But I see plenty of whites and Asians and whatnot with all kind of ideas. Now, these ideas may not be that great. They may not get any funding, but they're there. I feel like we're not coming with a lot of ideas and bringing it to the table as much as the whites and the Asians. I'm not saying we don't have any ideas, but do we have enough ideas that are good enough to be able to get this VC like how we should at a higher rate?
Right. And we can't say Shark Tank is racist because they got Mr. Fubu on there. He is one of the sharks. So
I think you guys got to look it up, man. And it's not that we don't apply. It's not that we don't have ideas. It's not that we are not there. It's that people, and again, this is why a lot of minority-based venture capitalist firms have been founded, and they have raised money based off of this premise, is that women and minority people are not getting the venture capital, and it's simply one of the reasons is because, again, people like funding those who look like them, who they are familiar with, who they trust, or they have an implicit bias to trust. They don't fund, like, you can look at Elizabeth Holmes. There's a trial going on with Elizabeth Holmes. Elizabeth Holmes was able to con over $900 million. You can't name one black person who was able to con over $900 million without proving the science. Without proving the science. You can look at Meg Whitman. Meg Whitman created a company called Quid. That company crashed and burned, spent, I think, over $1 billion or $6 billion, one of the two, in 6 months. She created a video site. The thing about it is that people take risks based off of those people they feel familiar with. And it's not, and if they don't feel familiar with you, your name is LaQuisha. You might have a great idea, but I'm not funding you.
So, but explain the whole thing about the Shark Tank though, because isn't that in the same room what you're talking about with VC and whatnot? So why aren't we really there? But why?
We got Fubu on there.
Well, you got Damon on there. You have Charles Barkley that came on there.
No, I mean as far as those that are presenting ideas, not the guys that have the capital. I'm talking about the guys that are presenting the ideas.
Oh, we black people do go on Shark Tank.
Not a whole lot.
It's not a lot though.
We do. I've watched probably every single episode of Shark Tank, and black people are definitely on Shark Tank.
So what's the percentage you think? Just a ballpark.
I would say probably 15%, maybe 10%. But that's also reflective of the population. So it's like you can't. I mean,
Joe, how many black folks is watching Shark Tank versus BET?
Oh, I don't know, man. I can't answer that.
So
question.
you're normal. Most black folks ain't really watching it like that.
But we don't know that.
Nonsensical.
Our culture.
That's a blanket statement. Let me digress on that because.
I'll just say this. I think that I love the conversation, and I think this should be had, but we need to look at the why. The cheap way to say why is that it's racial discrimination. It's because it's black. The more nuanced why is that, is it a cultural thing? Are people presenting themselves properly when they do go and ask for capital? Is it a language barrier? I mean, because if you go somewhere and you sound ghetto, people may not take you as seriously if you can articulate yourself very well. Just like people in the South, You know, when you're in the South and you country, people don't take you as seriously as they take people from the Midwest or somebody from New York, you know, that sound a little more proper. And so that happens whether you black or not. So is it more nuanced? And if there's nuances to it, how do you overcome the nuance? How do you say, okay, go ahead?
I think you can ask the question for sure. I mean, and there are those things. I don't want to say that there's not those nuanced things, right? I'm not the guy to sit here and say, you came in talking, you know, using Ebonics, trying to present your idea. There's another show that entrepreneur.com does. It's called Elevator Pitch. And like I said, I come from, you know, pitching products and things like that. Even if you talk about pitching products to big companies like CVS and Target and Walmart and all these things, these guys have initiatives that are specific to recruiting minorities because, again, a lot of times they get overlooked. They get overlooked on purpose. And it's not that they don't have good products. I've been to Walmart's open call. I sold products into Walgreens. I know exactly what the profile of the supply chain looks like. And it's not always because you weren't buttoned up. It's the fact that you are denied capital, you're denied opportunity, and I rather instead of Chris Rock said, Black people got to invent teeth in order to get, you know, to be able to afford a place where he lives at. You know, he said, but a regular white dentist can just be a dentist. And so a lot of times you do. I'm not trying to bag on the white audience because I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that you have these extreme measures of Black people having to overprove themselves to be worthy of a risk. Like I said, Elizabeth Holmes did not prove her science. She's raised. You can look up her story. She raised over $900 million from investors without ever proving her science.
Well, you kind of contradict yourself because you make the inference that women don't have these opportunities, and that's the name of a woman that had an incredible opportunity.
One woman, though.
What I'm saying is that's one woman with $900 million.
For some of these other things you're saying, you're talking about instances where somebody was given kind of like preferential treatment that was not Black. You name it one person, but you name one person that had a good outcome as far as a woman getting money that she shouldn't have gotten.
Yeah.
But the
So you can, and to the adverse, you could probably say that there's more men that are denied.
Check it out though. But check it out though. See, now what's happening is that there's the other, it's going the other way, because some people say that Black and brown, meaning Blacks and Hispanics, are being discriminated against. Now they're being unfairly propped up. And a prime example would be in academia. Like Harvard, there's a lawsuit going on right now from Asian students because they're being kept out unfairly because of like some
they perform too well.
Yeah, they made this metric a personality test. They got all the great scores on the SAT, GPA. They're coming from good schools. Everything's good to go. They're doing well on their tests to get in, their entrance exams or whatever. But then they score low on personality. Overwhelmingly, it impacts the Asian students. Why? Because a lot of these Ivy Leagues are predominantly white and Asian. So they're trying to get the Black and Hispanic numbers up. So you get accepted when you have a lower GPA, lower SAT score, and then they're put into these high programs. And of course, they perform poorly because their tests aren't up to par. Then they want to talk about racism there. See how the whole cycle kind of perpetuates itself rather than saying it's racism. You got to focus on getting them better when they're in K through 12. It's so simple. People don't see it that way, though.
I mean, even in education, ABL, even in education, when if you're a minority student, 9 times out of 10, if you're going to college, you're gonna have to work. So your focus is not just on school. It's not. I went to UCLA. I know the statistics of.
But how does that relate to the interest in, like, to getting into the actual college? How does it relate to your performance?
Well, I'm gonna address that point. I am going to address that point. But I'm saying when you're in college, you talk about the Black people not having good test scores. When you got a 9-to-5 job while you're working in college and you got to help out mom at home, that's not going to help you get a good test score. So,
Joel.
See, the problem is that
no,
when they go to a different college, they perform better with working and everything else. The issue is that they're not prepared for these high-level programs. They're mismatched. They're put into a school where they shouldn't be. They could still go to a good school, maybe not MIT, if you're not some kind of math genius, okay, your SAT score said it, your GPA said it, your performance in high school said it, your preparedness level in K through 12 said it, but you were placed there because of affirmative action and optics.
Mm-hmm.
So the college will look good. That's what's going on.
That's what it is. AB, you hit it on the nail. It's affirmative action. You're in a school that you necessarily didn't qualify to get into, and you can't keep up with the level of work they need you to do. We can't blame it on, oh, I'm single parent and I'm working 2 jobs and going to school. That's culture. Well, you had a child. You're a single parent now. You got to work to provide for the child. We can't blame that on the school systems. That's culture, man. But again, it's affirmative action, and that's why affirmative action hurts us to just get into something just because of the color of our skin to try to, you know what I mean? That hurts us because now we have people that did not perform to qualify to get into that particular school, and they can't keep up with the work. So now it looks like, oh, well, the test is the racist test.
Yeah, right.
It's the test that's doing it to us. You understand what I'm saying, Joe?
Yeah, this is what I would argue too. I look at these things and I say, instead of thrusting people into a situation not prepared for, help them be more prepared.
Right.
So instead of, we shouldn't be having affirmative action at this point in our country. I think what we should do is we can go look at some of these schools in the city, and instead of spending trillions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars to get Afghanis into America, we should be reinvesting in some of these schools to help Black people become competitive and be able to go to a school on merit. And if they don't have merits, there's a lot of HBCUs. Now, I know that, HBCUs don't hold the merit of Harvard, or, some of these Ivy League schools. It may not hold the same merit. So I get why people complain on that issue. One other point I'll make is when we talk about venture capital, how much do we invest in each other? That's the big question. Nothing is stopping. I think there was 3 new Black billionaires this year. I think what's her name? Rihanna, Kanye West, and somebody else. Who?
Jay-Z.
And Jay-Z. These people, and Beyonce arguably is a billionaire. So just say
LeBron.
that. Who else?
LeBron.
He's a billionaire.
Yeah.
So we got LeBron and we got Michael Jordan. So I mean, you can say and Dr. Dre and some of these other people are very wealthy. Why would you need a Shark Tank when they can have a, they can have a hood tank or something?
They can have it on BET if they wanted to.
But I feel like that the problem is that we sometimes don't reinvest in our own. The ones who are complaining, they don't reinvest in their own communities. They don't reinvest in their own situation.
But the problem is that we're not prepared. We're not organized. Going back to your point, Joe, we're not organized before we do it. So then the money don't go nowhere. It's like it's going into a black hole.
Because
so I do want to speak to that. So first of all, the Jay-Z and those guys, a lot of those guys have venture capital arms. Stephen Curry, Carmelo Anthony. Jay-Z is actively investing in actively investing. You can look up some of his investing. His investment arm is called Marcy Ventures. You have a lot of those guys who are. And LeBron James has, again, I know how your audience probably feels about LeBron James, but LeBron James has done incredible work when it comes to sending. I think he's sent over 10,000 people to college. LeBron has done some incredible work in the community. Incredible. Disagreeing with if you like on his police statements and all the other stuff you want to talk about, but he's done some incredible work, and he's setting a great example in terms of family values, and also in terms of fatherhood, and also in terms of giving back. So I think
minus his fear mongering.
Well, yeah. Again, we're not talking about. Again, I giving you that, but I'm saying that when it comes to Brandon's point, I agree with him. We got to do more in that area, and that goes to my point is that these guys who do have this money, these and they're making all these hundreds of millions of dollars, they got to stop trying to floss in other Black people's faces and stop trying to show off and do all these things and start reinvesting so that people can live better lives in their own community.
And I don't think they have to. I think if they want to complain, they should, because we live in America, man. You should do business ventures with white people too. Like it ain't just about black.
Oh yeah, they do.
So,
and I agree with that too. Yeah, they should absolutely. I have some of my best business partners are white people, and I'm saying that it should be. But I also think that this idea of the 99 and the 1 is something that we, even as Republicans, miss a lot when it comes to affirmative action, when it comes to cases of this idea of Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, highlighting certain groups or certain people that aren't doing well. Even Jesus said, I'm leaving the 99 to go to the one. How do you reconcile some of your belief systems that contradict that philosophy of, okay, the 99 are okay, so let me refocus on the guy who's hurting? What's wrong with that?
So let's talk about that real quick. So
Yeah, 'cause
you
that's-
brought
yeah,
up
that's
the
just
scenario
getting
of Jesus's flock, and then he, I get that point. So what is your example of that being done, and how is that left out of the Republican side of it? I think that's what you're saying.
I think anytime there's a question of, let's focus on this group that seems to be hurting, right? I don't care who the group is, right? It's always like, well, what about everybody else? Like, for example,
but they're just basing it on color. That's the problem.
It
I think
could
the
be-
point.
it could be-
I think the point is
sorry.
Black Lives Matter, because
Yeah,
we're
he's
focused
going Black
on,
Lives Matter.
like, we don't really favor Black Lives Matter, but the point is that it's not even about the 1% or that are hurting or whatever. It's about what Black Lives Matter is doing to the whole country, not just to the 1% that they're trying to help. It's about the negative effect they have on the whole country. It's about all the rioting and looting and whatnot, and this general air of lawlessness that has swept the nation, that goes into academia, goes into the workplace, it goes everywhere. It's like a virus. That's the actual virus. It's the contempt for law enforcement, the contempt for law and order that goes across everybody, not just to those that they purport themselves to help.
I'm gonna give you an example, and I hear you. I'm not. Some of the topics, I don't want to get too deep into that right now, but like, for example, in California, and I'm not a Democrat, so I don't agree with all of Newsom says. I'm more in the middle. I tend to agree with Democrats sometimes, and I tend to agree with Republicans sometimes, and I tend to disagree with them at different times. But when it comes to, like, for example, during the before COVID hit, or right when COVID was hitting, there was a whole lot of hoarding. People were running to the grocery stores. They were cleaning off the shelves. They were doing all this hoarding. And do you understand how our supply chain works? How our food chain works? How we get food into America and crop and get some of these things? You have migrants and people who are coming from these indigenous places, Central and South America, who are coming here, breaking their backs, spending 10 hours a day in the heat, picking. I live in California. We have tons of farmland here. And these guys are over there picking our foods. But then Newsom said, hey, let's try to help these guys out with some health care if they're doing it. They're like, well, what about our veterans? What about our homeless? And I'm like, we can help them too. But I'm not saying, like, these are people and they're feeding us. So they're not
citizens though.
Yeah, let me jump in. Let me jump in like
American
this.
citizens first, then to the illegal aliens. And because they're over here, picking fruit and whatnot, that does not mean they owed anything. And those jobs, and those jobs were done by Americans. We were in agrarian society. 90% of us worked on the farm back in the day. Those jobs are done by them because they are the new slaves. That's what's going on right now. Don't try to say, oh, are you going to? It's not even about me. It's not even about me. Those jobs were done by Americans. So we got this weird system going on where we permit them to come over here and work under the table. And that whole thing is wrong. That's wrong. You shouldn't be doing it.
And they price out, I believe they price out a lot of American workers that want to do those
low-end jobs. These jobs ain't necessarily low paid. Americans did that work. But now, since we got the illegal aliens coming in, they're taking advantage of. Same thing with construction. It's the same thing.
ABL, at what cost would you pick strawberries? At what cost per hour?
That's an American. That somebody in America could have used that job.
Hey, I know plenty of guys in the hood right now that had no job that'll do it.
I asked you, ABL, at what cost?
I mean, I don't need to. So I got money.
No. I mean, because you made the argument. I'm saying, at what cost would you say, okay, this is good enough for me, a good pay for me to sit here and pick this lettuce, this squash, this strawberries? What cost do you think is reasonable to pick that stuff?
I don't know. It depends on my situation. It depends on my life. But hold on, I'm gonna answer your question. It depends on the situation. It depends on my life. If I didn't have a job, I didn't have anything, and it was enough for me to be able to eat on, and I'm kind of just down bad, I do it.
Okay, and then if you were picking that stuff, if you were picking it again, because we're still making an argument that this has to come at a reasonable cost. So when you go to the grocery store, what would you like to pay? What are you comfortable with paying, given that the fact that, again, this is an input cost to a farm? What would you like to pay, and what's acceptable? Because you did talk about inflation, so let's talk about that.
Well, now let's go back.
It depends. You see, I think you're conflating a lot of different issues. It depends on how much it costs. Like, and I think that inflation has nothing. The inflation, of course, can be caused by labor costs, but what's causing the current labor costs to rise up? All this artificial money printing they're doing. The government's doing way too much. If the government weren't so involved with the economy, we wouldn't be paying so much for the stuff we're paying for now. The inflation wouldn't be so high right now. So if we had, if was the fifth, if we could just say, okay, no government intervention the way it is right now, no illegal aliens. If the country were different, then this wouldn't even be a question, because Americans would be doing it and the market would level itself out. It wouldn't be a matter of, oh, well, since we're not going to have the migrants, you got to do it and you want to get paid double the cost. That means it's going to go up. You got to have the whole situation get back to normal, not just that one piece of it.
And let me add this. Let me add this. You know, we looking at minimum wage too. You know, this hurt minorities way back in the 30s. And I got this from Thomas Sowell. I was reading some of the stuff that he was talking about when it comes to minimum wage. Why he disagreed with minimum wage is because you had low skilled workers get pushed out of the workforce because of minimum wage, because they were like, well, I'm not going to pay. Why would I pay a black man X when the white man is more qualified? And if I got to do it at this price point, I'm just going to hire people more qualified. White people are more qualified than black people. The same thing is happening today. They want to push $15 an hour minimum wage. Why would you do? I mean, that's not sustainable in reality, because now you have people who are coming here illegally. Now, just imagine we didn't have any illegals. What are we going to do? Starve? No, Americans will have to work those jobs. So now that they influx illegal people into our country, they can now take advantage of them and make them work for cheaper and make a better profit margin. Now, the people who are not documented in this country don't have a minimum wage. You know, they're going to work and they're going to all live in one house, and it'd be 10 of them in there.
And they're not going to do that. Mexico, where it's worth a lot more.
ABL.
Then they can buy a lot of stuff and send it right back here, and they kind of cheat the system that way.
ABL, I want to address some of your issues. First of all, the idea of minimum wage was created because white men were being priced out of the labor market by the Japanese and by the Chinese. So the minimum wage was meant to protect white men, because some of these same companies that were owned by white men were saying, hey, how do we lower our labor costs? So this whole idea goes back to like the 20s and the 50s.
So is it a good thing?
No, again, but you're talking about importing people, right? The Japanese did a lot of our agriculture. The Japanese did.
Okay, before the Japanese came, before
the Chinese,
all these immigrants came, who was doing the work? It was blacks and whites. That's who did it.
Blacks weren't doing it for competitive wages.
We did it. It don't matter. It still happened. Whites did it too. It was a lot of poor white farmers
at higher wages.
It was a lot of poor white farmers too. Dolly Parton and them. Dolly Parton's 70 years old. Her parents were dirt poor and farming in Tennessee.
Whites did it typically at higher wages. That's why.
But how much were you living? How in the hall? Was it like Bill Gates versus a guy on the street as far as the wage difference? How much higher was it really?
I didn't catch what you said.
I mean, was it a big wage difference? Was it like the difference between Elon Musk and the bum on the street as far as the wage difference? How big was wage gap in between the white farmer and the black farmer?
I gotta check on that. I don't know the answer.
So how are you gonna say that it was a big difference if you
don't
know?
No, it was a big enough difference for them to pass a law. It was a big enough difference for them to pass a law, and that's a fact. And
then the law hurt us at the end of it.
Well, I mean, but then that's how you got the minimum wage law in the first place. Just like
the law hurt us.
You got the marriage license. The marriage license was created so black men wouldn't marry white women. Like it's some of these things that were created.
How was that worked out? All these laws that.
But I'm saying, you have these laws in place today that, again, they changed. Things have changed, but there's history behind them. And again, America has always been a country that has imported workers. I mean, there's no history that we have where we actually did all the work. We've always imported workers.
Technically, it depends on how you look at it. You say when we did all the work, you would argue that after slavery, the black people who were doing a lot of agriculture, picking cotton and all of those different things, they were Americans doing the work.
But they weren't being paid fairly.
But
They weren't being paid.
What's fair?
That's
What's
the
fair mean?
Democrat. That's the Democrat talking point. And I'm not saying you're a Democrat, but I'm saying that's what politicians say in order to implement more government control that leads to bad consequences. So they wanted to create a minimum wage, which disenfranchised low-skilled workers, which were black people. And so now you have an illegal workforce that has to be reintroduced.
And then the black folks who had those jobs that now the illegals don't have any jobs, or they have fewer jobs. So
And the government is now subsidizing.
If the purpose was to have black folks to get higher wages, that didn't work. What it did was just take us out of the workforce altogether. We lost jobs rather than getting the higher wages that we wanted.
The minimum wage was never meant for black people. It was not meant for us.
Well, it don't matter who it was meant for. The purpose, like the whole point, is that who did it affect? It affected us in a negative way. That's a fact, and we all know that.
Not necessarily, because we actually secured a lot more jobs by doing lower paid work. So we actually secured a lot more jobs. It actually hurt us, because what happened was companies were forced to hire between black workers or Chinese or Japanese or even Filipino workers or native workers. And they were saying, okay, well, we might as well hire the white ones since we got to pay $20 an hour.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Because they were more qualified, they had more skill, they had more tangible skill. It wasn't like today. Like, for instance, people that do housekeeping, do you have a degree in it, or do you have some type of special, certification for it? No. The people that clean your house, you're going to go with a person with the better wage. Now, however, and I'm not going to confirm or deny if people clean my house and they take cash and they don't speak English, but I'm not going to confirm or deny that. But what I'm saying is that you have people who come into our country and they're able to wager their way through the system because of the minimum wage hikes. And I feel like it matriculates down to where people, like, I wouldn't say myself, but other people would say, how much do you charge to clean the house? Oh, you charge X. Okay, I'm going to pay you X and I'll pay you cash, and you got to deal with the government on your own. This is an independent job that you do, versus somebody saying, oh, there's a minimum wage. If there was no minimum wage, then it would be more of free market competition, in my opinion, because you wouldn't have illegal people competing that way. You would have all people competing, because legal people cannot compete when there's a law of minimum wage, or at least there's a structure of minimum wage.
The next step is going to be 1099. Ain't gonna be no more employees. 1099 contract, baby. I'll give you your form at the end of the year. You fill it out, handle your own taxes and your own benefits, and handle it that way.
I'm just saying. I think that my argument here is that these low-skilled jobs are being reintroduced illegally because of the government's interjection into creating a falsehood of minimum wage, just like the tax raise. We're going to raise taxes on everybody making $400,000 or more. The middle class will end up paying those taxes, because if you're making $400,000 a year, I'm pretty sure you have a quality CPA, and you have accountants, and you have people doing your taxes. So you ain't doing TurboTax, you know what I'm saying? No. and, you ain't getting screwed. So they are not being genuine. And even if you make $400,000, people that make $100 million a year, $400 million a year, these people definitely not going to pay that much money.
They got multiple tax people working with them.
They put money overseas. They invest money into all kind of stuff, and they know what to do in order to cheat the system, the loopholes in the system.
Well, I agree with you, because I mean, first of all, this whole idea that $400,000, you're not going to be taxed unless you make over $400,000 is not even true. I mean, I agree with you.
They say raise taxes. They claim they're not going to raise taxes.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. They're not going to raise taxes unless you make $400,000, because inflation is a tax. It's a tax on without a vote. It's so, and inflation affects those who are on fixed income. It affects those who are wage workers. It affects those who are in the middle and lower middle class the most. So I agree with you. I agree with you 100% that this idea that your taxes are not going to go up if you make less than $400,000 is totally false, because it's already gone up by the inflation tax.
Right, and this is just going to continue to go. If you think you're going to make Bezos and Amazon pay more in taxes, they're going to just charge more for their products, which is, I think,
It's
what
a
you
vicious
was saying
cycle.
about inflation. And then what they do is that they, there's a lot of inflation numbers or product inflation. I don't know what the term is, that you go to the store now and you buy a family size of cereal, and the family size is not an original size, but it's a family size price.
They call that shrinkflation.
Shrinkflation. That's right. That's exactly
Mhm.
what it is. So you're going to see a lot of inflation. You're going to see a shrinkflation, but it's going to be matriculated down to the middle class of America. Poor people are not. They on food stamps. They got government assistance. So it really is not going to affect them as much as it's going to affect people who are actually earning a living, working in the middle class. They're going to pay these crazy amount of prices for gas. And if you make millions of dollars a year, gas don't matter to you. What does gas? I mean, maybe if you're fueling your jet, maybe you may be like, dang, I got to pay extra $60,000 on fueling my jet than I used to pay. If you're making hundreds of millions of dollars, it doesn't matter. If you're making millions of dollars, $60,000 is not a big deal to you. That's like paying $60 more for something, in a reasonable sense. And so I just think that these government institutionalized things really create more problems than they do good. Most of it is established by Democrats that sell you a dream to get power. And once they get power and it all falls apart, then they blame the Republicans.
Well, I think they both sharing the blame of spending too much money. I think the Republicans done a terrible job of being fiscally conservative, just like the Democrats. They both spend way too much of our money, and they need to stop spending. They need to shrink the size of government, and they need to raise interest rates. At the end of the day, we're not protecting the value of our dollar, and the value of our dollar has eroded because both Republicans and Democrats spend too much money, whether they lower taxes or not. Or it's at the end of the day, the idea is if you go to Jerome Powell and say, "Hey, Jerome Powell, run it up," at the end of the day, that's a Democrat and a Republican doing that, and they're both accountable for that.
I would agree. The debt went up under the Republican administration, and it doesn't matter, man. We had trillions of dollars in debt right now, and they still spending money.
Yeah, we're pretty much screwed.
think about this, for example. If you had an accountant or something, or somebody that's supposed to be managing your money, and you close your eyes, you wake up, and you're in debt $100,000. You're like, well, wait a minute, dude, you fired. You don't know how to manage money. Right. You should not be in charge of managing money. And that's the same thing with people in government. If you can get a country that is one of the most successful countries that bring in probably some of the highest revenues to the treasury, and you can't manage that money properly, you should lose your job. Because this is what happens, man. When it's not your money, you're willing to do whatever with it. And I think that's what they do. They say, well, we're just gonna this capitalist society that we've been able to foster, we're gonna now change the rules of game for you. We once told you that you could be whatever you want to be. You can make as much money. If you create value in 1 billion people, you'll make $1 billion. Now we want to change it. Now we need you to pay more. It's like, no, that's not the part of the negotiation. If you said I would have to pay X amount up front, maybe I wouldn't have gotten a business this big. Maybe I wouldn't have ventured into this. But you gave me the guise of saying, look, I can make as much as I want, and I pay this. That's an equal trade-off of my hard work. Now you're telling me I got to pay 40% more? Then you game the system, and there's people who lobby, who Democrat, Republican, that make sure that there's loopholes in taxation, so the ultra wealthy people will always win the loophole game, and middle class people are always going to suffer when they play these games, and then we go into debt. That's pretty much fighting these wars that we don't have no business fighting, and spending hundreds of billions of dollars on stuff that we shouldn't even be involved in. Selling our country to China, all of these different things.
Instead of spending $100 billion on wars, let's spend it on therapy. Let's get it. Let's get everybody in therapy. That might be money well spent.
Or healthcare.
And healthcare, or preventative healthcare, all the things that we're talking about. Absolutely.
We could easily.
I'm not culture.
Yeah, culture. I'm not for government. I'm not for government control, but I'm like, since y'all already stealing all our money, then why don't you make healthcare affordable to everybody? I'm all for affordable healthcare. I'm just not at affordable healthcare at the cost of big government, you know. So, but I think with the money that we already give y'all, we should have reasonable healthcare. We should have healthcare transparency.
See,
You know, with the amount of money that we paying y'all, you know, we should have a lot more in our country than we do.
the,
Go
the
ahead,
problem
go
is
ahead,
that
I
the problem is that the government is dumb. That the government are dumb. They don't do things properly. And I think the reason why things are so expensive is because of the government intervention. I think the solution would be less government, personally.
I mean, I agree 1,000%. I mean, I think government should be out of a lot of things. You know, I think government should be out of marriage. I really do. I don't know why we enter this
Amen.
contract with the government in marriage, because the government just trick you into this stuff. You know what I mean? They get you married and they're hoping you get a divorce. So because if the government is instituting certain things, they get a kickback, just like child support. And you know, I pay child support for my son ever since he was a little kid. He 11 years old. I'm paying. I'll be paying till he 18. Every year they take a tax out of that child support. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
wait a minute. What do you need to take? It's an exchange of my wallet to her wallet.
They get first dibs. You
Why,
ain't
why
know?
are you taking money out of it?
Government
What
get
tax
first
do we
dibs
got
on
to pay
that.
on this? Oh, they you think about it. They want listen, let me tell you what they do. And I'm gonna get off here because I know we've been on for a long time. Let me tell you what they do. They want you to say my body, my choice, and give women the complete control of abortions or life. But they don't want the man to have a say. Women indiscriminately, some of them have so many children because they can either get on government assistance or they can milk the dad. And so they let these women go off and make these decisions, and they say, oh, dad, you didn't have a choice in abortion or not, but you got to pay. Come on up out your wallet, or you're going to jail.
Yeah.
You're going to prison. And so they create this scenario where they can then generate a system of taxation, because I don't know the number of how many dads or ex-husbands are paying child support that they then take tax from. I mean, because they count as a tax deductible when it comes out of your account, but they get taxed on the other end of that. And so, you know, I feel like the government creates more government. And that's why we all crazy. You know, people can't even own guns in some states. You know, California make you jump through hoops to own a gun. And, you know, now you got to rely on government safety. You got to rely on the police department, because you can't defend yourself. You need the state to defend you. And when the bigger the government get, man, the worse it goes. But I'm gonna end it there, because we can go down a whole path of government intervention. We can go down a path of these dirty
We got to go to bed, though.
laws. Yeah, you got to. I got to go to bed too, man. I got to leave tomorrow, and then my wife is probably like, "B, you've been up there for 3 hours." So, but I want everybody to be able to find you guys. So, ABL, people were asking at the beginning of the show. I don't know if the education system has prompted people to not do any research, but I mean, they could just Google ABL and they can find everything that you do. So, for those who are probably not catching on yet, how do they find you, ABL? And do you have a store or whatever? Go ahead and let them know. I see that new hat you got. I see.
Oh, yeah. I got a few. I digress. I got a few of these. But yeah, you can find me right here on YouTube by searching ABL right there. It's easy, right in front of you. That's why I do it like that. I don't put my full name, just ABL. You can search it on YouTube. I come right on up. You can also go to my merch store, ablmerch.com, ablmerch.com. You can get these hats, a bunch of more hats, t-shirts, stickers, hoodies, more. Also, you can go to Anthony B. Logan, that is ANTHONY, the letter B, LOGAN.com. You can find my email, my snail mail, on my social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. Plus, for each video, I write an article. So for each article, I have all my sources from left, right, center, independent, local news. So you know I'm not making stuff up. I give you real facts on the website. That's all I got.
All right, Craig, what you got?
I mean, I kept it simple. It's right there. You can just find me on IG. It's a real Craig Long 45. I am big on TikTok. Craig Long 45. If you want to support me through my services, I do have a website. It's called www.45strong.com. If you want to pick up some cool merch and whatnot. But yeah, man, we still got a lot to cover with Joel. You know what I mean?
But yeah, I appreciate you, Joe, being respectful and reasonable. That's the reason why I had you on there, because there's some people that are just complete lunatics. Maybe it's good for content and argument, but you know, it's hard to have a conversation with somebody that they live to just disagree with you. Even if they agree, they got to disagree. So, but Joe, where can they find you?
People bring me back on, man. I'll definitely like.
You were a great guest.
We,
Fantastic.
we, we need to touch up on that Black Lives Matter
Oh, we gonna
comparison that he did.
I'm gonna make the panel just a little bigger, and I'm gonna shut up and let people talk a little more. So we gonna bring you back for sure, man. Because
For sure,
I
man.
think it's good to have a difference of opinion.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I'm you can just find me on IG as Joel_Jackson85. So it's Joel_Jackson85. And and I also lend to real estate investors, whether you black or white, don't matter. So if you want to just send me a DM and hook you up with some great rates. All right.
Perfect. Hey, you get them the rates before they go up. I heard that the rates will never be the same ever again. It's the lowest interest rates and rates on loans that we will ever see in our entire lifetime. So you better get in there because the interest rate is probably going to go up like a madman. But anyway,
all right, guys.
I appreciate y'all. Y'all hang out in the back office. I'm gonna close us out, and I'll see you guys in the back office. I'd like to say a final word to my guest, and then I'll let you go home. So I appreciate y'all, man. I see y'all brothers on the next one. Thank all of y'all for watching every Thursday, 6:30. Unless I'm flying somewhere or like I got to do something different, we'll try to have the guests on. I mean, shout out to Joe for coming on, even though he don't agree with everything. It could be intimidating coming on somebody's show and thinking that they just can get bombarded. But I think he was very reasonable. Y'all give Joe a shout out. Go to the Officer Tatum store to get all your cool merch. Tatum IG 20% off the entire store. That includes my signed copy of my book. Also, we have new merch that's on the website. So if you go onto the website, you go to coming soon, you see the new merch, you like the coming soon merch, go on and click notify me when made available. Therefore, you'll get first dibs because some of the items that we just launched, I know for a fact they're going to sell out because we try to do a reasonable run. So we don't have a whole bunch of inventory. So you better get it before it sell out. And once it sell out, some stuff I won't bring back. I'll just bring out some new stuff. So y'all go visit that. Thank y'all for watching. I love you guys. I appreciate you. I got a video that's coming on after this video is done. So you can watch another video tonight. I love you guys. I'll see you on the next one. I'm out.